We have been on all this time.
Oh.
All right. All right. I want to welcome everyone to your City Hall. It is August 2nd, 2022, and it's just at 4 p.m. This is our work session for today. We see that we don't have a quorum yet for our TRC commissioners, but I welcome each of you that are here now. We will go to the next agenda item, and then we'll get back later. So the next agenda item is Johnson County Direct Assistance Program. And so we will start that conversation at this point. We know through some of the memo that we've received and through communications that the county has finished that process. And then there were great opportunities for people in our community that did get awarded some funding, but there was certainly some that got left out. And so at this point, I wanted to just open up the floor to the to the counselors to maybe just discuss this. There was kind of a memo that we had, but I'll just open it up now.
Start?
Okay, fine, I'll start. I think the overall goal of the county project was to make sure that people who largely, but not solely, people who are not eligible for stimulus funds and who had really worked hard through the pandemic and suffered would get something. I don't think that the way the program was constructed was ideal. Sort of the money we agreed to, we didn't end up with exactly the deal that we thought we were getting. However, I would really like to find a way to make the rest of the 319 people whole. If that means we pay a part of it, the county pays a part of it, whatever we end up with. Basically, these people have served everyone. They've worked for everyone, even if they don't live in Iowa City. We've all benefited from them. It's a one-time thing. I don't think Iowa City should bear the full burden, but nonetheless, one way or another, I would like to see us figure out, together with the county and other governments, how to make them whole.
I would second that, Janice. Just, I had said it to some community members, but I'll just repeat it here, that I would very much like to resolve this in a way that helps those who are excluded, and that we help in the way that we began, with a collaboration. And so I certainly hope that we can work something out. I believe that there is a way to do this, and we don't want to exclude people anymore.
And I'll agree with my two previous council members, because to be honest, I was very disappointed to learn that there were individuals who did not receive any of the funds. I have appreciated the emails and the public comments about this, but what I don't appreciate, and I've said this many times before about other things, that being demanded to do something. And we did receive emails that demanded us to fund all 319 of the persons not funded. Demanding is not the way to go about wanting something. It has a very aggressive tone to it. Asking or requesting has a much better effect, and I do believe that those persons who should have qualified for funding should receive it, but I don't believe that Iowa City should be 100% responsible. We were provided a lot of information regarding the disbursement of the funds that included a lot of legal terms, so it was kind of hard to get through all of it, but it also stated many times that this was for Iowa City residents. But after reading more closely, there is a clause in the subrecipient agreement dated 4/19/22 that mentions unused funds. On page 31 of the information packet under item 3, it states that the city may otherwise direct the disposition of such remaining funds as the city and the subrecipient may mutually agree. So as mentioned, I would hope that we could agree with other entities on what to do with these remaining funds. There are two scenarios that I'll just mention that I'd be in favor of and hope the county would agree. First is Iowa City funding those individuals living in the near fringes of Iowa City. From what I've been told, there are a number of them that live in those mobile home courts that are just like across the road from the Iowa City city limits. And those folks are already being hit by being their trailer court being bought out by another entity and possibly having their lot rents raised. So they're already in dire need of extra funds, so I would be in favor of that. Other scenario would be Iowa City funding 50% of those individuals who were not funded, possibly meaning reimbursement to the county for those Iowa City residents that were funded, potentially giving additional resources back to the county for disbursement. But whatever we do, as the other counselors have mentioned, we just can't leave anyone behind struggling to get their feet back on the ground.
I would like to say that I would be very comfortable with either one of those options that Pauline was just mentioning, and agree with pretty much everything that's been said thus far. Yeah, so I mean, I think either one of those, whether we look at something in a zone around the annexation zone that we already sort of see as maybe future parts of Iowa City, or just if we want to just keep it simple, just see if the county be willing just to split it, and we would reimburse them for half that number, and they could use that to agree to use that for the other people that the other half that would need to be done and
County
get that done.
residents.
Yeah, so.
I too share I think the sentiment of council, which is that we're not there yet. We have 319 households which we need to address, and we won't be complete with this element of the program until we do that. I certainly hope we can work together, and would expect, in a sense, that since we've aspired to work together with the other entities in terms of trying to solve this problem or problems in the past, that we will apply the same approach to this particular problem. I might add, I'm trying to think of as many scenarios that we might want to consider and explore as possible. In addition to the entities, the cities and the county, I would ask the people of Johnson County as a whole, how can we all, as citizens of this county, as residents of this county, contribute to addressing the gap that we have in the funding? I think there may be some possibilities there. It was, in a sense, used with the federal funding through CWJ, where people were asked to contribute, if they receive that funding, to contribute it back to CWJ. So perhaps there's an opportunity for all of us to, in any way we can, help bridge this gap, this funding gap. I personally would feel better if that were the case, that if we do believe this is, in a sense, a kind of a moral imperative, that we all understand that we may have a role to play with this. But I am hopeful that we will, in the end, be able to resolve this issue.
I agree with my colleagues that our intent was to get the money to those who are eligible for the program, and hope that we can move forward to do that. I think for the sake of trying to come up with something concrete and be able to move forward quickly, I would just propose that we say 50%. Rather than having to delineate an area and, select specific applicants within a geographic area. I think we know what the gap is now, and just, if the council agrees, offer to fund 50%, with the understanding that because we made the commitment to Iowa City residents, that would mean kind of backfilling a portion so that the county funds could then be freed up for those unpaid county residents, and the Iowa City money could come in for the Iowa City residents that would be equivalent to half of the remaining portion.
Great. Well, thanks to all of the counselors that have spoken, and I would also agree that, at this point, we certainly have an opportunity that I think we should navigate. I do believe that having some agreement with the county, or having discussions with the county, or giving the county a proposal to see what their temperament is for this, or I think is a wise choice. At this point, I'm trying to figure out, there's a few things that I heard, trying to figure out how we can fund individuals close to adjacent to the city limits. I heard a 50-50 split. I think if we're going to move forward with something, that we should maybe direct our staff a little more specifically to have the discussion with Johnson County. Essentially, the supervisors will have to have that discussion. But maybe there will be some opportunities where, we can certainly create a letter on behalf of, create a letter with staff support on behalf of the counselors, and just open up the opportunity for solutions to be created. And the supervisors meet a little more often than we do. So I think we'll have some time for some correspondence between, but if it does sound like I've not heard anything more than a 50-50 split. And so my thought is that we would move forward, try to figure out what would the county agree to. I heard, the backfill option, where essentially we would pay, because the funds have already been allocated to all of the individuals that's been funded. But essentially, the city of Iowa City would pay for half of the 319 Iowa City residents. Half of 319 is what we would pay for, but it would be credited to Iowa City residents because, as everyone knows, our ARPA funds cannot be used by anyone that is not within our jurisdiction. The other part that I probably just want to, so does it sound good that we'll kind of move forward with drafting a letter, I think, and then giving it to the county, and then there'll be some communication between now and then.
Yeah, I'd suggest that we request that staff be in touch as well, as you indicated.
Yes. Yes.
And that we also try to find a common ground of just let's get this done. As Laura mentioned, that, with a sense of, if not urgency, although I guess urgency is the right thing, but let's just get it done. We don't need to do the back and the forth and the back and the forth that drew this out painfully for everybody who is involved. So, we know that they're eligible already. They've met the criteria. Let's just see what the county can do, is willing to do in terms of a collaboration. And again, the way the lottery happened was not necessarily ideal, but we did get a large number of people covered, and now we just need to close that gap so that our intention and our actions are the same. So,
And if it turns out that there needs to be some kind of special joint meeting in order to accomplish this, I'm fine with that as well. Whatever works.
whatever it'll take, yeah.
To move this forward.
Okay. One thing I did want to just mention, when I read through, because we all saw what Counselor Taylor, I was going to say Thomas, but Counselor Taylor had just talked about that resolution. And so when I read through the resolution, I do want to make it very clear in my statements to the council as well as to the public that we lived up to our agreement to a T. The city did. The agreement was to, for everyone in the county, this was a county initiative, go up and be a part of the lottery. And then anyone remaining that didn't make the lottery that lived in Iowa City would get funded. I also want to say that the county, from my perspective, did everything to the letter as well. So they knew exactly how much money they had, and they followed the direction that was the information that was given to the public. So we have a lot to be proud of here. I think and that's the message that I don't hear ringing through the community. But we have a lot to be proud of. We're the only one in the entire state that has done this program. So we know that there's individuals that haven't been funded, and this is an opportunity that we see. Iowa City, in my opinion, again, we don't have any financial obligations to it, but we will, from the sound of everyone up here, we will go that extra mile to make sure that we can participate in a resolution. And so I just wanted to make that statement. And again, to everyone that's been funded, I think the county and the city were very happy that we were able to do this. Thanks to the government, they gave us the ARPA funds to make this possible. And now we're trying to get to the last mile. So I would ask for grace and patience from the community members while we navigate this opportunity with the county, should they be receptive to it. Anything else on this item? All right. We're going to move back to our first item on our agenda, which is a joint meeting with the Ad Hoc Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I want to welcome all of our commissioners here today. We do have a quorum, so super excited that you all are here with us today. The topic that we have on hand is certainly that of the budget, and so we want to go forth in the budget. I also want to mention that we know that there's a kind of a hot topic at hand with one of the commissioners, Amel Ali. What I'm going to ask is that we focus in on the budget, and then collectively, I think we're going to not be able to speak on that topic. One, for timing, but also the council has different, the council and the commissioners have different levels of authority when it comes down to any commissioners, and so I think that topic is probably best left out of this conversation at this point. But we do want to go forth with our with the budget discussion. All of the council did receive in our information packet the budget proposal, and so I guess I'll look to our new vice chair to maybe start the discussion. But before we do that, I just wanted to maybe give the opportunity to all of our commissioners to just introduce yourself very briefly. I know it's been a while since we've been together. You probably know most of the counselors, at least I know most of you on a more personal basis, but maybe just give a brief little hello to each of us and give us your name. And I know some of you aren't in Iowa City, so tell us where you live.
Hi there. Thank you for having us this evening. I'm excited for us to have this discussion. My name is Kevo Rivera, and I live in Iowa City.
Mohammed Traore, formerly of South District until I think it was February 2021, now in Tiffin, Iowa.
Great.
Cliff Johnson here in Iowa City, and thank you for having us.
Chastity Dillard, thank you all for having us, and I live in Coralville.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daphne Daniel, and I live on the east side of Iowa City.
Great. Welcome to all of you. And I think we'll just jump right into the budget discussion.
Awesome. Again, thank you all for having us here, inviting us here to have this budget proposal discussion. We went back and did the work that you guys all asked us to do over the last few months, and we are excited to present this proposal to you. We are hoping to have this conversation to unite us all to be on the same foot, so that as we move forward, we can start to do the work or continue to do the work that we set forth off. So I'm just going to briefly read what we have that you all already have, and then we do have our partners here, and they're the most knowledgeable, so I'm going to let them answer all of your questions, if that's okay.
Great.
So the proposal that we have is actually a set of 4 proposals from 4 different groups. As you already know, Think Peace, Kearns and West, 3 Native partners, and the Healing Partners team, which is our local team here. And we recognize that the skills and expertise of each of these group members are interdependent and necessary components to continue the work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. What we have decided is the best, or what the proposal is going to present, is that we would like a phased approach, giving knowledge that we are supposed to be ending next June. So it's two phases to co-create a framework and process a process that reflects intentionality. And it's important to recognize and include more local partners and have this phased approach from which to evaluate our progress. The two-phase approach is going to occur in 3 to 4 month intervals, and we will use that time frame to evaluate next steps. So we do have some of our partners in the audience, but we would love whatever questions you all have to start off.
I know I would love to hear a little bit more how you broke down the phases and what we could expect under this plan.
Could you say it again?
Oh, I'm sorry. I would love to hear a little bit more about the phases in a little more detail and what we could expect under this plan.
Okay. So I would love to invite our partners that are in the audience to come explain this in more detail.
Hello,
Welcome.
counselors and TRC. Wonderful to be here. My name is V. Fixmo Rise, and I'm the CEO and founder of Steig Planning. I actually am part of a team, the local healing team. So I have one of my partners here as well, and somebody else who is on vacation because it's summertime. So I can kind of go through some of the phases as you asked for, and then we also have another partner here. So I have Annie Tucker, who's on our team, Angie Jordan, who's also on our local team, and then we are fortunate to have Dave Ragland here, who is with Think Peace. And I believe Kearns and West is listening in, so maybe I'll get a text message. I don't know. So as Chastity had kind of mentioned, this really is moving at the speed of trust. Really, we had kind of gone back to folks, the TRC and city councilors and the community, to hear, after that first and second time, like what would be something that could actually move forward at a pace that was, manageable. Because we kind of kept hearing that the chunks were too big, that, it's too much, too soon, too fast. So kind of centering that, we really looked at a phased approach. And this first phase is really about education. So TRCs are international. There is a lot, I think, for really our community to learn and understand when it comes to Truth and Reconciliation Commissions. What is it? How do they get started? What does it mean? To actually go through the process to, have, what does it mean when you're talking about having kind of like public hearings? Why is that important? There are a lot of really deep conversations and education that will be kind of that first phase, as well as beginning some of that data collection. So we do kind of have another partner, Kearns and West, who will be starting the data collection aspect of things, working with the city school, our school district, the police, hospitals, all of the groups, nonprofits, and community members. What is the data that we're looking for? That's really some of their expertise. And I should say that the education and the truth-telling team is Think Peace. So I'll let Dave Ragland talk about kind of their part and their experience doing that internationally. But then the local kind of Iowa Healing Reconciliation team is us, and then also 3 Native Iowans who are actually very exciting, like kind of co-creating what it would mean to do restorative justice healing circles that are specific to Iowa. Because we recognize that circles, while they happen all over the world, do have a tendency to potentially have appropriation, and we want to make sure that we recognize that and really lean into that. So our team has really sought the inclusion of and sort of leading by Native folks. How can we co-create something that is truly authentic to Iowa, to here and now in this moment? So that will be kind of kicking off and forming that at the same time. So that's that first 3 phase. And we have this phase also to provide a pause. So after we kind of do that initial phase, we would like to come back and have some recommendations for moving forward to the second phase, knowing that we may need more time. There may be things that come up, things shift. If COVID has taught us anything, like everything is a draft. So, there's going to be some things that we may want to shift and deal with. So that's kind of that pause there, progress evaluation. And then shifting into that second phase, which is a little bit longer, as Chastity had mentioned, we really want to honor, the kind of deadline of, June with the commission. And that second phase is really looking and digging more into the truth-telling aspects, so conducting the interviews, the public, the hearings, and also the fact-finding. So digging even more to that based on what we find out this first round. What more information do we need? Where do we need to go? What are we missing? Those kinds of things. And then continuing with the healing aspect of it as well. We talk about reconciliation. Obviously, when people are telling about the harm that has occurred to them, there is an opportunity for healing in the moment and then also in long term. We also have here strategic doing and planning that would be part of this. And myself and Angie Jordan are both trained in strategic doing, and we feel as though that may be a process to really kind of kick off some of the strategic planning. How do we take all this and move this into, into the community? We recognize that 3 local partners is not nearly representative of the amazing talent, experience, and knowledge of people who live here and their expertise. So while it may be 3 of us to begin with, we also encourage the creation of, other groups and nonprofits that would be included along the way as those expertise are required. So the strategic doing would kind of help steer that a bit as well. That's like a really broad overview. You can kind of see in your packet more specific breakdown in terms of who's doing what when. And again, that phased approach is really meant to take those bites and then pause and see like what worked. I don't know if anybody else wanted to come and talk about anything, or if you have any questions at this point.
Real quick, I'm just intrigued by strategic doing. Could you explain that just a little bit?
Yeah, strategic doing. Actually, the Iowa City Area Development Group is a strategic doing hub here in Iowa City. And so myself and Angie Jordan were trained in basically a process that takes the assets and people in the room that are here and says, what can we do with the assets and the people in the room that we have in this moment to move forward towards a larger goal? Usually it's like an aspirational goal, like the best public schools in the country. And then how do we get there? And so then people start gravitating towards smaller, like low-hanging fruit, so to speak, through a strategic process of, well, what would be like, something very difficult, but also less expensive, or what would be more expensive and less difficult? So you kind of go through this kind of weighing and measuring of what do we have in the room, where are we trying to go, and how do we get there? And from that, you actually come up with Pathfinder projects. And that's where we would have like community members and groups and commission members, kind of lead those Pathfinder projects. So yeah, it is very kind of specific, but in the end, it's like a fancy strategic planning in some sense.
And then it looks like the last part of the phrase, the recommendations for moving forward, would that be the phase of recommendations to the council about what's next? Kind of, that would be the end of the TRC ad hoc sort of mission at that point. Am I understanding that correctly?
So I think there's a couple points of recommendations. So after the first phase, we would have recommendations, and then the second phase would have recommendations. I don't want to weight it too much to be like, and here's the be-all, end-all, final recommendations, but I think that's what we would be working towards, is what are the next steps? Because we recognize that, hundreds of years of harm and, having and the structural racism that we live within, 7 months is not going to be enough, right? So what is the long haul here?
I just wanted to add a note. So Tom Banta helped me go to the strategic doing training actually last May. And wanted to add that I actually have a few Pathfinder projects that I wrote down at the time and then iterated on over the year. I can provide those as well for things to start, planning on.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, we're very fortunate in our community that I feel like every time I say strategic doing, somebody's like, what is it? And then somebody's like, oh, I know how to do that. So that's great to have that expertise in our community. Thank you.
Do you have a start date or tentative start date on this?
Yeah, yesterday. No. As soon as possible, I think. And I want to stress that the reason why I believe the TRC wanted to make this session was because it's a draft. And so we're really hoping to get your feedback to make it better, so if you have a suggestion of a start date, those kinds of things, that's what we're here to do.
Great.
So the second phase, as it's currently envisioned, would be a lot of the truth telling and that, because that wasn't, when I was reading through the plan, that wasn't completely clear to me.
Yes, that would be correct. Yep.
Thanks.
That was what I was slightly confused about, too, was where in this document did it elaborate on community involvement, such things as forums and listening posts and those kinds of things. I wasn't quite sure where the community fit in to those kinds of things.
Yeah, we will add that.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Thank you.
I actually have a question about the education piece. When you talk about education, it sounds like that is a piece that is both inward, the work so that everyone is working from the same understanding, but then also that it would be frontward facing and community based as well to provide education for, I was wondering about audience, but it sounds like in your description it's both. Is that correct in phase one? That work will be happening as well.
Yeah, that is my understanding, and certainly Think Peace is the one who's going to lead that, and Dave Ragland could talk more about what that looks like. My understanding is that it's exceptionally important that the entire community is educated as possible, and that really there is, a collective movement towards racial justice, that it can't just be the commission, that it has to be the community, is my understanding.
I guess questions I have for the commissioners, during your discussion, what were some of the highlights that you all brought up as maybe some concerns that you can think of right now?
Only thing for me is just time constraints, just the reconciliation process in itself. The true goal is reconciliation. Just have a hard time seeing how that's completed at a specific date or time. It's really hard to say when someone feels like they've, had the situation remedied to their satisfaction. So the main thing for me is just some kind of avenue after the TRC is completed to have some kind of permanent commission or some kind of permanent board that's overseeing this actual reconciliation process. Otherwise, it ends up being a list of recommendations without any real backing. I'm not really sure how we can address that ourselves, since we can't, say, hey, this commission's going to be permanent, but that's just one main concern.
Something that concerned me, and our community partners did take this concern seriously, was the matter of transparency. We don't want anything that we do to be seen as this is merely the commission taking upon itself to give a recommendation to City Council about what we think the community needs and how we think the community can move forward. And I think our community partners have done a great job, and they were amazing during the process of discussing this, and I'm sure if there are specific questions, they can answer them. But one way they kind of dealt with that question of transparency is providing in the plan opportunities for us to, as both a commission and as the council and maybe even as the community, to reflect on what has been done so far. So I believe after phase one, there's a moment where we kind of pause and reflect on this and then move forward. And I think that's so important when we're talking about something that not only brings up a lot of emotions, but could be controversial in some ways. So, yeah.
One question that I had brought up, and I'm not sure how much progress has been made on this, was I think we have amazing partners so far, both that are locally based and experts in truth processes, and then also people who can take a lot of data and figure out how to really interpret that and make suggestions from there. And so I see, 3 experts who can really successfully do 3 different things. One question that I had was, okay, how do all those parts talk to each other, and how do they communicate alongside us with the city? And they had kind of answered that in the suggestion of a TRC Commission coordinator position. As it stands in the packet, the suggestion would be that that person could be a part-time employee of the city, but I just wanted to see if we had any more updates on kind of what that might look like.
Yeah, I don't think we had any further updates per se, but thank you so much for calling that out. Thank you. So it is imperative, when you're doing something, that you have somebody who's doing the thing. And so as the work moves forward, having a local person that would, reside with the city to do that, because it is a city commission, who could really focus on how do we coordinate all of the things. It can't, currently the commission, if they were to do things separately, like who is bringing sort of what we call herding cats, like how do you make sure that things are navigated? We have facilitation of meetings, we have meeting minute notes, it's sort of I don't want to say the not sexy, boring stuff, but like some of it is, and then also making sure that we're coordinating the where, when, who for the truth telling, for the events, for those kinds of things. It can't just be left to a commission when there's lots of, as we said, if we do the strategic doing, there will be pathfinder projects. There will be specific tasks that they are, going to be a part of and leading, hopefully. So the creation of this position, we feel, would be really important and integral to moving forward, as we have 7 months to do this.
If I may, I think that how you've articulated it makes a lot of sense, that there does need to be sort of like a point of contact, and certainly someone who can kind of facilitate and organize and project manage essentially throughout. I will be honest that my concern is that this is far more than a half-time job. And even in going into the specifics of the budget, there were several instances in which Kearns and West noted, assumption is Angie will lead this, right?
Yeah.
That there's an awful lot of weight actually put on local partners, while I will also start to get into the weeds a little bit. That's not reflected in the budget.
Yep.
With all due respect to Kearns and West and their reputation, I think that their portion and what they're charging is heavily bloated. Because also they're saying, oh, but we're not going to coordinate that. We're going to, so those are some concerns that I have. I very much like the way in which there has been this true, deep, and hardly fought collaboration with a lot of local input and a lot of listening. I wish that was more reflected in what we have, because I fear that, in fact, the bulk of work will fall on local partners. I think it's going to fall to TRC. I think TRC has an important role to play, and so I think that's something moving forward. The awareness has to be there, because right now the budget is not reflecting that at all, and I do fear for the fact of the centrality of where this is happening, along with the passion and the expertise, that there will be a lion's share of work done by locals, which is fantastic, which is what the previous council wanted, but that will not be reflected. And I think that in terms of thinking about equity, that's something that really matters.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. In fact, you'll see that there's no rate for Angie in our proposal. There are hours allocated, because we didn't feel like we could say what the city should pay that person. So that is a good point to bring up, that when you're looking at our local partners, we are mostly focusing on the reconciliation aspect of it, and the coordinator position we wanted to make sure that Angie was still a part of the process because she has been so integral since day one. So that's why it's not reflected there, and we don't know the process for hiring, or we don't know, like all of that kind of logistic stuff. So that's why that is missing. But I appreciate that you're really bringing that up. And I will say, in all honesty, having not done a Truth and Reconciliation Commission process before, we are really trying to stay in our lane. As local partners, we're saying, here's what we can do. We can hold these healing circles. We have restorative justice, practices, and can certainly convene and help. And then we are going to have to rely on a coordinator to kind of do the herding of cats and the organizing and the scheduling and all of that stuff. But so yeah, to your point, that is not reflected in the budget, and so that would be something separate, and we don't know what that is.
Thank you, V, for that explanation of the coordinator position, because I was a little confused about that, and I did have concerns for it, because it seemed as though it sounded more like a facilitator, actual facilitator role, and in fact, in the description of the position, facilitator is mentioned many times, and so I was wondering why you needed a person in addition to that. But aside from that, I wanted to thank the Commission and the partners for this document, because this most recent proposal, I think, is what I wish we would have seen over a year ago, rather than being given bold proposals over time that weren't really very reasonable. This one is much more specific and defines roles, which is very good. So my concern was about that coordinator position as well as the community involvement. But this document certainly, I think, comes closer to what we as a council, I don't want to speak for my other council members, but what we were interested in seeing to help get the TRC back on track to their original mission. But considering the remaining time frame, it does seem a bit overwhelming. So that would be my concern too with the time frame.
I certainly want to make sure that council recognize we have the opportunity to speak to our TRC commissioners, and TRC, you also have the opportunity to speak to us, so please chime in. And the support of the individuals here, we appreciate you being here, but I also want to make sure that we have space to interact as well.
I would, as part of this, I'd also be interested in hearing from Dave Ragland, who has a lot of experience with these processes, to get your sense of how these pieces fit together and how we would move this forward.
Before that, I just wanted to ask for a clarification. So I'm hearing that I wish we would have had this proposal like a year ago. What are the specific parts that made it become more amenable? Because the Kearns and West part of it is pretty much the same format.
It seemed to be more itemized as far as who all was going to be involved, rather than just this massive facilitator, Kearns and West, was going to kind of be responsible for the whole ball of wax. But this itemizes and does some more as far as what Annie and her team would do, and what you as commissioners would be doing and responsible for, and a time frame. Before, I don't think we had much of a time frame. It was just sort of, this is what we're going to do. So I appreciated that it was spelled out that within this 3 months and then within 4 months. So that's what I found as much better and much more helpful.
There's a lot of specificity that's very helpful, at least from my perspective.
Welcome.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here, and I just want to honor this commission, this council, for doing this really hard and important work. I think the things I want to speak to is like who we are at Think Peace, and just sharing that some of our formative experiences has been working in truth commissions around the world. Chile, Argentina, Peru, also local commissions. We're currently working with San Francisco Truth Commission on prosecutorial misconduct. I worked and helped to found the Ferguson Truth Commission with Congresswoman Cori Bush, and some of the other work that we're doing is working with Portland City Council and the mayor's office there. And so we're essentially, we really wanted, I think in the last few years, we've been seeing how necessary it is to defend democracy and to also heal as a nation. And the reason why we wanted to work with local commissions and have started working with local commissions around the country is because we wanted to provide some of the support that commissions need to move forward to the next phase to do whatever they wanted to do. And some of the work that we've done already is we offered a course on the formal term of truth and reconciliation is transitional justice. And we offered a course where many of the commissioners attended around what does a process look like from start to finish. And we've been working with other commissions providing a hub space so that communities around the country can be in touch with each other as they do this work as well. One of the primary things that has come out of this work is providing technical assistance. And the technical assistance, as you see in phase 1, is focused on education. And part of the education is to build capacity in communities to do this work themselves, right? Because we understand that we're not going to be here all the time, although we're committed to seeing what happens here in this community. We're committed to this community sharing its truths and reckoning with its past and present. We know that there's only so much support that we can do. And so over the last year, we've spent lots of time talking to commissioners and supporting in whatever ways, just from a professional support perspective. And the primary work that Think Peace is doing, and Think Peace is a collaboration of the Truth Telling Project of Ferguson, of which I'm the co-executive director, and also Think Peace at George Mason University, as well as Restorative Justice for Oakland Youth, led by or founded by Dr. Fania Davis, and led by other folks who've really tried to champion truth and reconciliation as a process that our nation needs to heal. We need a reckoning. We've never stopped to say, where are we? And that's what we're trying to help this community do, although this community is already doing important work around that. And so we're really interested in supporting that capacity building through education and technical assistance around helping lift and move forward the truth-telling process, which includes public hearings. I think education is a part of that. We also support ways to organize and ways for this commission to bring other people in this community into the circle. I think as well, and that's part of the first phase. And the second phase, or the first phase also includes fact-finding, which is a part of that, and also supporting people who are telling their stories and truth-telling in that way. And so I can't say much more than V did, but I'm happy to offer any responses to questions as I'm sweating profusely up here. So thank you for hearing from me, and I'm open to respond to any questions that are there.
Thank you, Dr. Ragland. Do you have any thoughts on what Councilor Weiner was talking about as far as the bringing together the pieces and kind of having, when you have different partners working on a larger project, and what that might look like?
I do. I think that, already we've been working together to support what's possible. And I think that this feels like a large process with so many moving parts. And, number one, I support the idea of a person here to help coordinate. But we'll be here and present and try to help fill whatever gaps that are present to support connection among all the aspects of this process. We're committed to this, and I don't know how much more I can say about this. If you have some more specifics, maybe that can help me go deeper in.
But you would also be providing technical assistance to whoever the coordinator is, so that they can successfully carry out that role, which is obviously a key role.
Yes, definitely.
Are you aware of any other example of the kind of structure that is being proposed here that has, I know it most likely it's not going to be so in every detail, but I'm always very interested in modeling and understanding through other precedents that you may be building the foundation of this process on that you could reference?
Sure. There's a number of processes right now around the country. Some have been more successful, some have floundered. But one example that I am really appreciating right now is the international model, which looks at transitional justice as truth-telling or these public hearings. So a basic model is truth-telling or public hearings, truth-seeking, the data piece, and then commissions go between reparations, particularly the process of transitional justice emerged as a direct response to gross crimes against humanity. And so many communities needed some kind of reparations. And many of them include or don't include reparations, but most are focused on truth. Most are focused on reconciliation as a process. And so I was trying to see some other process I can think about right now. But for instance, the state of North Carolina is currently organized to create a statewide process, and that emerged from the Greensboro Truth and Reconciliation process that happened in response to the 1979 massacre, where a multiracial group of activists some were killed and injured, and the commission came together to try to change the way that the community viewed that happened. Essentially, the people who organized the rally were the ones who were blamed by the whole community for that. And what this process looked like was a lot of organizing in the beginning and education using various forms. They did a play. They had public conversations. There was a play that happened about the 1979 massacre, and the community put questionnaires at restaurants all around the city after the play. And that built public momentum for this community to have this process. And that process looked like multiple avenues for community healing. So people were invited in, not just from the core group, but communities all over the city. And that eventually turned out to some real revelations and some real apologies about what happened. And I think that's probably extremely important to just face up to our past so we can move forward. And one of the things that they found in that commission was that the police had been complicit in sharing the parade protest route with the KKK and neo-Nazis, which was one of the first time in American histories that those two groups came together. So one of the things that emerged broadly was recommendations from the city that went to the city from the commission that was essentially brought forward by a large community process of truth-telling and healing, and people got a chance to hear sides that they hadn't heard before. And one of the things I like to think about is how Reverend Nelson Johnson sat down. He's an African-American leader who helped initiate the commission. He sat down with a Grand Wizard of the KKK to have meaningful conversations. And it shows that people, for me, it shows that people who are seemingly on various sides of issues or perspectives can have a conversation, and there can be movement forward.
I mean, this is probably just like not necessarily the purview of this meeting, but it strikes me that the context in which we're looking at this has shifted since 2020 and become even more important overall for the community as we, and not just this community, but communities in the state at large, as we see efforts in the state legislature and others to prevent people from thinking critically or discussing the role of race or systemic racism. And you can't move forward without, you can't just shove those things or sweep them under the carpet and be able to move forward as a society. And that the whole effort to basically put a curtain up and say these things don't exist really was not part of the conversation when we started talking about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're in a very different political moment since 2020, which I think requires us even more to confront what people are experiencing, to listen, and to hear and be heard. And while I do think there are political elements, this process is really about healing and reconciling, and transforming who we are as a people, as a city, as a community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Yes.
much for having me.
Great, great.
May I ask a question of the commission? So, looking at the proposal, and I know there's been many hours that have been spent on it, two questions. One is, how confident are you as commissioners about implementing and executing, and knowing full well, and Mohammed, I thought you put it really well before, that it doesn't just arbitrarily end. The commission as a body might, or maybe it's not, but the work of reconciliation has to go on, and this is the purpose is to provide a mapping for steps that, of course, are going to grow and evolve and whatnot, but to have a framework in place with action in the 7 months. Do you feel, as commissioners, do you feel confident in this plan and moving it forward? And then also, what roles do you see yourselves playing in this?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. I really just want to start by saying thank you for your patience as we've been going through this process, right? There have been a number of periods during our tenure on this commission that felt like we were just facing setbacks or pauses or what have you. I think that by the end of my time serving on this commission, I will have realized that everything took as long as it needed to in order for us to be the best process possible. That being said, with the very specific plan that's been laid out, I do have some level of confidence that at least we can start setting up the frameworks for what can be implemented in this community in perpetuity, because reconciliation will not happen on June 30th, 2023, but it will be an ongoing process, and I hope that we can do a lot of work to get the community involved and more knowledgeable about what those processes could look like and how they can be a part of it.
I basically, I see things as almost like a farm. We have to make sure that we tend to it, start it with seeds, and then let it grow. However we can help, however I can help, I'm willing to do it. So I think, I have a lot of confidence in it so far.
I have confidence in it with how it's written so far, but with that being said, I'd also like to say that I also don't feel completely comfortable answering the question, as I don't feel I have complete information. Again, it's unclear the amount of these resources that we're asking for that will actually be afforded, if this is the plan that you will accept, or if you're looking for an amended one. So my answer would really depend on the amount of resources afforded and the level of support that would be given to us, but also that would remain throughout the process.
I appreciate that, and maybe if I can give a few comments, maybe that'll give you a little bit of, I think most of the council has talked a little bit about this plan. Sorry about that. So for me, one, I want to say thanks to all of the commissioners that are here and those that aren't as well at the work to present this to us. I've been having lots of conversations and, about, the TRC and the mission. The one thing I will say is that I'm happy to see this proposal in this identifying what is the charges of the three charges. So I appreciate that. The community partners was the biggest reason that I recall last year that this council said, the majority of this council said no to the budget. And the biggest thing that I remember about that is really the community involvement. And earlier this year, before you took your vote, I believe it was in March, for your next budget, the meeting before that, I remember Kevo's talking about phases, for the commission to, think about some phases. And then also Dr. Wangui, she mentioned, and the community partners are still there. The Healing Partners, as well as the Native partners, the three Native partners, they were in that proposal. But Dr. Wangui said, how much engagement have we reached out to the community as a commission? That was her words. And so while I, look at this proposal and I think that there are some great elements, I look at Kearns and West, and I also hear that there is really the need for a Truth and Reconciliation Coordinator position. And I would agree with Mayor Pro Tem Alter when she said, reading through this, it does seem like a full-time job that person will be doing. And so when I look at this, thinking about the role of the TRC coordinator, looking at what Kearns and West do, which I read as a project manager, the role of Kearns and West, I almost see that role overlapping in a lot of respects. And so while, I'm very happy to see that we're at this point. I want to make that very clear. Thank you all for getting to this point. But when I see, and I'm not really, if it takes $1 million to do this process, I'm all for it if it all makes sense, 100%. So it's not so much the money, but when I look at a non-community member, getting 62.3% of the $388,000 that is here, it gives me a little pause to look a little further. And if we're now going to look at, this TRC coordinator position, someone said they didn't know what the process was. I think that was Chastity that said that. For, how do we go through hiring? What is the process for hiring? I'll just give you a little snippet is that, there would have to be a job description created. This person would have a manager here, at the city hall. The other thing is that that job must be posted, to everyone, and any and everyone can apply. And at that point, the selection is made. So when I look at just what Kearns and West is doing, where we're going, and as far as overlapping, I would just want to be very transparent and caution the, TRC to maybe look a little closer at, how does that project manager, that's what I see this as a project manager role. Is that something that you can achieve in someone local or within this role? So that's the only thing that I have. I am excited, when I read about all that Think Peace can do and what they can offer us. Our healing partners, I know all of them, and so I'm, excited to know that they're a part. They're local community members that have been highly respected. The Native partners I haven't met yet, but maybe when I see them, I'll know them. I don't know who they are. But that's the only thing that I would say. Otherwise, I know that, people have said there's value in having outsiders, and I hear that, I understand that. There's value in having someone that knows this process. I hear that and I understand that, but I also know project management. and the things that are there, I personally feel can be achieved through another process, but that's all I'll say.
I can just add on, one of the things also that I noted in the Kearns and West was that actually they're putting the research of the data collection on their backs, right? And so that they would be creating the database and whatnot. I mean, that I would tend to agree. It's a specialized skill, but it is something that I think that portion of the work could be done locally. I think it may make sense to talk with Kearns and West, or if they're on the line, to consider and that as they do the truth telling, that they would be more research oriented. Again, I go back and in fact, one of my points of confusion was looking at, honestly, sort of there's a number of meetings, and I didn't know if those were solely of TRC meetings. I'm assuming, obviously, there's going to be more meetings than simply commission meetings. But it's sort of, there seem to be a lot of people who are going to be attending these meetings, and a lot of them from Kearns and West, and I don't doubt that they might all be bringing their A game, and this person specializes in this, and da-da-da. But I'm wondering if maybe a way to not impede progress and to not slow this up. I'm mindful that this also has a timestamp on it in the same way that we were talking about a sense of urgency with the direct assistance. But I'm wondering if there is a way that maybe Kearns and West could own the content of the fact-finding rather than the formatting of it all. And I recognize that puts some more onus on some potential other partners, but even the University of Iowa, like there could be people who might be able to be interns, do community outreach, work through the Obermann Center, perhaps. At any rate, I'm not here to solve, but I don't want to offer criticism without offering up also a suggestion. So I do agree with the mayor in terms of the project management aspect of it, because that in a company, that's where there's a lot of billable hours. And I do believe that they have, I sound just like the mayor, I do believe, but I do, that Kearns and West has a very specialized, expert, set of skills to be able to do that fact-finding, to do the data work through all the different institutions and amalgamate them and interpret them. I would love for them to be able to do that work while shrinking their portion of the budget to the sort of the logistical aspects of it.
Yeah, I really appreciate that comment. And there's actually been, this whole process, kind of to Kevlo's point, it's like everything has taken as long as it should have. But we've gotten to know each other very closely these past 6 or 8 or 10 months, Kearns and West, Think Peace, and our local partners. And I feel like we put this draft. This is a first, third, whatever draft in front of you. And then last week, after some input from the commission, we had another sort of like, hey, you're an all-white company, primarily men that are taking over 50% of the budget.
Yes.
That's problematic. And I want to just credit Dr. Ragland calling that out, because that's a hard thing to do. We've been working very closely with them. This is very tenuous. We already put a pause on it and changed the whole thing on them. So we asked them to go back and change their rates, actually take the fact-finding aspect and maybe make it more local. So they're trying to work through that. We've gotten some preliminary stuff. Timing-wise, we didn't feel like we had another full draft to present to you all today, but I just want you to know that some of those things we are pushing back on.
That's great.
Because we need to. It's like part of the process is if you're going to be doing this truth and reconciliation, it can't look like that.
Yeah.
It can't just be professionalized like that. And we do have a lot of resources here in terms of fact finding. We already know that the school district does a lot of that already. So there's, I think, some assumptions that they had made that maybe we can, take back, essentially. But to the project management, I think it's a really great perspective to look at this through and actually could be very clarifying. So I've taken a ton of notes to add to and clarify, community partners and a lot of the items that are listed, time constraints, making sure that education is clear outward and inward, and community involvement just needs to be more explicit. I'm adding the project management aspect to it because I think that's probably actually a good lens for us to look at our partners and say, if it's going to be this community coordinator position, this TRC coordinator position, is it enough? Because it is true when you look at Kearns and West, originally that was their role. So there may be some of that still in there. And I think we need to clarify whose lane is doing what, because we, quite frankly, want that here. And I know that that's what they can do because they're a professional organization, a professional company, and that's like their skill set. But we can do that here too. And so if you just, give us a little bit more time, it's nothing like a fourth or fifth draft to move forward. But this has been incredibly helpful, and really just want to open the door to, if you're thinking of something as you're brushing your teeth later, definitely let us know, because we want this to be successful. We want it to be reflective of the work that we can all do together, and it's completely part of the process.
I guess I would say that I think that I'm glad you've gone back to them. I'm glad you've made those points. I personally, as this is refined, I personally think that we should be giving you all, as well as the commission, the space to say, we're going to, the general amount of the budget is okay. So I'm just sort of setting down parameters, right?
Sure.
Possible parameters. And you're going to decide in the end how that's divided up. So maybe because it takes a while to hire someone, maybe Kearns and West starts out doing essentially the coordination and the project management. As someone is hired, they hand it off. They hand that piece off so that it's local. But then things have already gotten started and the ball has gotten rolling in this sense with the people who have the expertise, and they hand that off. And then you potentially have a lot of hours that then don't happen and are shifted to the local level. But I'm mindful of time, and I'm concerned, and I'm also mindful of the fact that it's probably not. I don't view it as our job to micromanage it. I would like to see it as our job to set sort of overall parameters, and it sounds to me like you all in their various groups have a good sense of the need for diversity and the need for the local element to end up not only being prominent but also being paid. Yeah. And to sort of say find those parameters, go forward.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I think everybody is mindful of the time. And I know Angie Jordan isn't here. I think she's taking some respite after finishing up the diversity markets. But I will say that she has said this, so I feel like I can convey this, that she would be willing to volunteer her time to ramp that up because she feels very strongly that it should stay local.
I guess one other little question I would ask is, have you been in conversation with staff in terms of some of these questions regarding the organizational structure, the role of the project manager, and so forth?
We have talked with legal, I think, because of any, Angie Jordan's husband is firefighter, and so there's been legal discussions about how she could be involved. But in terms of project management, I think I'd need more clarity on what we would ask, like who's, from the city perspective, like who would be a part of that, or how we organize ourselves.
I'm just, in terms of the review of the framework that has been developed here, it's a complex organizational structure. You have four groups working together on a difficult subject matter. But I was just, staff has generated lots and lots, have reviewed lots of RFPs on projects, certainly not TRC, a truth and reconciliation process, but are familiar with working on trying to knit together, how a team would be structured and how it might be organized in terms of role playing and so forth.
Yes, we
It was
have.
just a question, but it seemed to me that, they often will review the city's own consultant contracts. I was just really asking the question if they had been involved in this one in any way.
Yes, we have had discussions with Deputy City Manager Redmond Jones here, in terms of the complexity of having 4 entities on one proposal. I know it seems a little strange, but for us, it really creates a more flattened playing field. As before, we were all under one house, and so we felt like that needed to happen, quite frankly. But we were told that that's not an issue, that it's not super common, but that it's been done before.
I do just want to close my comments that I'm super encouraged by this conversation today, and looking forward to when you all get back and deliberate, because I know there will be more conversations that you all have. So I just wanted to make sure that you all heard me say I really appreciate what you've done so far. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. Thank you to the commission and to local partners for the work. It's coming into this halfway through the movie, I guess, just starting on the council in January. It's good to see something this concrete and this detailed in front of us as sort of a draft, right? So we understand that this is kind of bouncing this off of and getting some feedback from council. So as I look at this, I had some of the similar things, wondering about some of the possible redundancies in work and effort between a local coordinator and an outside facilitator or outside company like Kearns and West. So that would be something that, as you go back and work through this, I would want clarification and a solid rationale to support something like that. Because for all the reasons that have been mentioned, it sounds like a little bit of an imbalance there in terms of the way this budget and how it's structured, but it's definitely represents real progress. Very much appreciate Mr. Traore's comments about this is not going to be a 7-month solution. No, it's not. I don't think anybody ever expected that, but I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of this and how, what makes sense for moving forward. And so that's a really good endpoint for this first big step that the city of Iowa City has taken and got underway, before I was sitting up here. But again, thank you for the work that's been done. So happy to see some concrete stuff and moving in a direction we can actually, see some of these things start to happen, which was very exciting.
I just have one question. I'm sorry, Laura, you were going to.
Well, I had a question for the commissioners, as we've been around this table before. And do you feel like you have what you need from the council as far as getting to the point of solidifying a proposal based on feedback, so that you haven't voted on this proposal, right? And so kind of getting to that point of saying, okay, this is what we want to give to the council for kind of the up or down vote. Are you feeling like you're getting what you need?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll respond with an invitation. As you are looking at this proposal more in the next coming days, please feel free to reach out to us with anything that wasn't mentioned tonight. I think there was furious note-taking on all of our parts to make sure that we are clarifying, tightening, and adjusting things as you have mentioned so far tonight. We meet again on Thursday. I'm not going to say what the outcome of that meeting will be, but hopefully if you do have any other comments, please feel free to let us know about them so that we can incorporate those into our discussion.
Yeah, all I would echo is that as much input that you have that you would like to give us, we would certainly take it into consideration. We want this to work out, so we really just want to move this forward with you all with us. So thank you all for having us here.
I also would like to say I agree. I think more communication between us only makes things smoother, and I really appreciate your time.
Appreciate your time. Would like to agree on the more communication piece, but also just wanted to say got more clarity on some things, but still a little fuzzier now on some others. It's like the suggestion on bringing the university in, of not really sure how that process would work, if the job posting would have to be underneath the university's umbrella or if it'd be underneath the city or something.
It was processing out loud, so I did not mean to muddy waters.
I was just
not at all, not at all.
Yeah, because
it was processing. It was not a direct suggestion.
Just in terms of the total budget amount, just trying to learn a little bit more on the number of positions within the actual city, if there's a critical number of people you're looking for, or if it's more just as long as everything's covered and the vast majority of the funds are going to people within the area.
As you mentioned, the position thing, I think there's probably a lot of questions that would make sense to hammer out. Is this a position that lasts as long as until the final recommendation at the end of the TRC process? Was this intended to be something longer term? Is it intended to be 20 hours a week part-time, 10 hours a week part-time? I mean, there's probably a number of things like that, which I don't have a recommendation, but just one of those things as you consider this. I think one other thing that hasn't been brought up that's worth considering, and essentially somebody mentioned transparency, which 100% love to hear that. That's incredibly important for everything that we do. But there's also going to be some sensitive areas when we get to the part of the circles and the people sharing their stories. And so also I want the commission to be mindful too, as we do stuff that employees for the city or us on the council, we have certain requirements for open records and open meetings and all those kinds of things. And that's going to come possibly into some conflict with people who are sharing stories about their trauma. And we don't want to re-traumatize and make somebody. So I think that's a solvable problem, but I'm hoping, and you guys probably have already talked about this, but just want to make sure that that's something, maybe because of my background, the whole like records and meetings and things like that is something I think of frequently. So that's something too to think about, and how that will interact with somebody who is a employee of the city versus a member of an outside commission or group. So that's just something too to throw in the mix, because I'm sure you didn't have enough already. So.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm done.
One thing that you just mentioned that I don't think that I actually verbalized, but it is what I understand from what you just said now, is, could there be multiple people from the community doing some of that project management stuff, if I understood you correct? And I think that is something that the commission could go back and have a discussion about. And, I took a kind of a position that I just wanted to share. And I think the commission can go back and have those discussions. Anything else?
No.
Great. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
All right. I can access the city after doing it. I don't even know my phone. All right. Great. We are going to move on within our work session agenda, and the next item is the clarification of agenda items.
Where to go? I just wanted to point out in the agenda 6A, the Housing Trust Fund contribution, not pull it out or anything, but just that this is the contribution of $500,000 that will hopefully be a multiplier through the Housing Trust Fund contribution.
All right, July. Any other comments about the formal meeting agenda? We're going to move on to information packet July 14th.
Would
Gonna
this,
move-
oh, I beg your pardon. Would this be a good time to get an update on the recent meeting on deer management?
Yeah, we can.
Maybe we,
We can do that now. There's a recap memo in the July 28th IP if you want to wait till that time, or we can jump into it now.
Well,
I have no preference.
yeah, why don't we wait till July 28th so that if someone's pulling it up, they can get there as well. Any other items from July 14th? We're going to move on to July 21st.
Yeah, I just want to mention IP2, which is the annual memo on calls from the police chief and fire chief on fireworks calls for service. It's always, as the state has loosened the laws, and it's just becomes increasingly challenging. And I think this points out pretty clearly that large number of calls, yes, but the ability to actually, two aspects, the ability to actually locate the people, and at the same time, the need to end up getting more specific information, if possible, through the calling process as we move forward on this. But it's going to continue to be an issue.
Yeah, it was so hard. I have neighbors. I live in an area where if you look at the map, we were kind of triangulated among where a lot of calls were, and I had many talks with my neighbors, and I sympathize, and I was irritated, and I called, but the problem is that this is sort of like having to know exactly where and when it's going off. And unfortunately, tragically, this was also an incredibly busy weekend for far more serious calls that I think anybody in my neighborhood and of the folks that I spoke with would say, yes, the resources are far better put towards attending to more serious crimes, even while it's a really distressful situation. But it's something that, hard choices have to be made, and that was something that I tried to explain a little bit, but when you're in the middle of things going off constantly, it's hard to really have that sink in. But I think that post July 5th, when things went down, people could rest a little more easy.
I think it'd also be very helpful in the future if we can sort of think as a group or other people to put out. I know that we work on messaging in advance, but to really push out some op-eds or messaging on how difficult this is for animals, how difficult it is for people, for vets and people with PTSD, and so many others, and look at it through the human lens. As opposed to what the state allows or what the state doesn't allow, and really call on folks to think about that.
Yeah, I understand there were some specific issues this year with being able to respond, but I did want, I looked at the numbers, and I'm sure there's going to be some variation from year to year, but this year, 57% of the calls for service were in 5 neighborhoods. So, Grant Wood, Lucas Farms, North Side, Weatherby, and downtown. So, and I would say, based on my own anecdotal experience, that the public parks are often the sites where the most activity occurs because it's a larger open space. And so, we're talking about fireworks, not firecrackers. I mean, these are generating, the sense of explosions that are taking place. And so when it's concentrated and when it occurs over an extended period of time where it seems like there's no end to it, as we got some correspondence on this, it was pretty stressful to be in the middle of all that. So, looking forward, I would just hope we can solve this issue of location, because it's again, it seemed clear that where we were seeing the most activity were in the common spaces within the neighborhood. Not the only locations, but certainly some of the more prevalent.
Maybe there's some opportunity there with our neighborhood outreach position. And as to the point of messaging, as Janice said, even just the basic fact that you can purchase fireworks in Iowa City, but it's illegal to shoot them off in Iowa City, I found myself clarifying that for folks numerous times, because that's very confusing. And just hammering that again and again.
And I think that brings up a point where I'd like sort of like a tip of a hat to the earlier councils. So when these fireworks were first legalized in Iowa, councils, many of you were sitting here now, were here then, made it so that the sales was illegal to sell except in very certain places in Iowa City. I know just from my own experience living in Iowa City that after that happened, like the following year, the number of, that we were hearing fireworks and the number of complaints dropped off. It wasn't as prevalent. And so tip of the hat to the council for doing that, and a wag of the finger at the former mayor of Spillville, Iowa, who took it upon himself this last legislative session, a town of about 300, who was upset that cities like Iowa City had found a loophole to ruin the right of people to fire off fireworks wherever they want, or buy fireworks wherever they want in this case, and got that pushed through and got the governor to sign it. And so I definitely, certainly our constituents should reach out to us, but I encourage them to also reach out to the people in charge of the Iowa House, the Iowa Senate, and the governor of Iowa for taking away our ability to try and make our community more peaceful, and not have all of these issues for pets and people with PTSD and all of those kinds of things. So I think it's important to know how we got here, and people that tried to help that were sitting up here right now, and the people that took our legs out from underneath us again. So.
Anything else from IP for July 21st? Going on to July 28th, information packet.
And that's where IP6 is the memo about the bow hunt.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're going to welcome Rachel.
Mayor and City Council, I can provide a quick update on how the listening session went last Monday, and then if you have other questions about that memo, I can try to answer those as well. So last Monday at 5:30 here in council chambers, we held a listening session. There were several city staff. We had about 9 members of the public attend, and then we had 2 staff from the DNR also attend, 2 wildlife depredation biologists. We had invited them prior. We had, as I mentioned, we had 9 members of the public attend, and comments and questions and suggestions were shared that really kind of spanned the gamut of the different strategies that are included in our deer management program. We had participants who were opposed to the bow hunt, who suggested more promotion of non-lethal methods, and then we also had other members, especially from certain areas in the community, who had really noticed that uptick in deer that our data has also reflected, and were just kind of expressing their concerns, sharing that they were hopeful to help the city as much as they could see us be more successful in our bow hunt program or in our deer management strategies in general. And then our DNR biologists were also there and able to provide some perspective about how new bow hunt programs have gone in other communities in the past. We're certainly one of the most new communities to have started a bow hunt program, and the DNR did provide some perspective that, it does take some time to gain that trust, that interest in a community.
Kind of along with Councilor Harmson's comment about those folks that reside in Des Moines and make rules and laws and the DNR, et cetera, we as a council had tried over the years to have a successful process for culling the deer population. We tried many things, and from what we'd heard, the sharpshooting was the most effective. And looking at the numbers now, it's like over the last 2 years with the bow hunting, only, 4 or 5, 6, not very many were eliminated. And it came kind of close to home for me. I'd never seen deer before, but I came home actually from a council meeting one night, late night, and car light shined on the driveway, and I thought it was a large dog, but it was a deer in my yard, and I'd never seen a deer in my yard before. So I found the comments interesting that perhaps over time, some of the folks that maybe were slightly against any culling the deers maybe are going to see the light and see the increased population when they start seeing more deer in their yards. I've seen a lot of pictures on social media. People like the deers are just very comfortably sleeping in their yard, and mama with the babies, and so it might take a little bit of time, but perhaps we'll see that over the process. But then we're going to need the state to realize that perhaps sharpshooting is the better method.
Do we have any reason to think that the session that we had and the DNR folks who attended would change the minds of those on the Natural Resource Commission to reconsider our repeated requests to sharpshoot again?
We met with the DNR, which I think is also included in the memo, in person in March, and then we've kind of stayed in contact with them since then. They have, we've kind of suggested that a sharpshooting option may be something that would work well in our community, whether kind of another one-time or temporary solution as part of a broader plan. So we have shared that suggestion with them. They have also shared suggestions back to us about how to improve our bow hunt program, how we might gain more hunters who are interested, how we can help connect hunters with property owners who are interested and have property that is eligible to be hunted. And then they also connected us with some contacts from other communities, such as Des Moines, a little more urban, a little more similar to us than maybe some other more rural areas. So I also met with all of them and kind of got some good feedback and perspective of them. Again, that was all kind of focused on how can we make our bow hunt successful, because we know that that's what the Natural Resource Commission has a high priority on us ensuring that's an option. So we're kind of focused on how we can help build that as part of our overall program.
We do have, so it's this bow hunt and then next year's bow hunt, and that's the end of our 5-year management plan that the NRC approved. So probably about this time next year, we're going to be working on a new 5-year plan to present to the NRC. And, a couple of things. One, I think we have to show that we are taking the bow hunt program very seriously and doing the best that we can to attract hunters and provide opportunities. And we're making adjustments each year based on what we learn. As Rachel said, we're trying to learn from other communities. The biggest difference right now that we haven't addressed is the other communities in Iowa allow hunting on public ground. We do not. And I wouldn't be surprised if that is an issue for the NRC when the time comes to go back. But clearly the DNR staff see the numbers, they can see the trajectory, and they want to help us manage the deer in our community the best way possible. So I think if we're in a position next year where we have to go back and ask for sharpshooting, I don't think we'll ever get necessarily back to the point where we can do that every year like we were, but some targeted sharpshooting in certain areas at certain times may be plausible as long as we continue to put forth the effort to grow our bow hunt program.
I agree with that. I do think if we show a good faith effort to try to make the bow hunting work and document what those efforts are, that we could make the case for reintroducing sharpshooting at some point in the near future. But, so I think it's great. We're doing precisely what the plan called for, trying to make adjustments, trying to make it work, all in good faith. I think we're taking the right course.
Thank you. Any other item from July 28th? This is really related to IP1. So as mayor, so we're all aware earlier, as I mentioned, about the Amel Ali situation. And as mayor, I wanted to just kind of get council, if there would be some support for me placing on our agenda, on our next formal agenda on August 16th, the removal of Amel Ali from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We cannot discuss it, but I can do it independently, but I would certainly want to see at least 3 people that would support that.
I would.
Okay, and you don't have to, I just need to see shaking of heads. So I will have that on the next agenda. We're going to move on to University of Iowa student governments updates, and they are not here today. They're on vacation, as so many people are.
Arranging your furniture.
Yes. The next one will be council updates on assigned boards, commissions, and committees. Ed, don't hear any. We are going to be adjourned until our 6 p.m. formal meeting. So we'll see you in about 22 minutes.
Alter,
Here.
Burgess,
Here.
Armson,
Here.
Taylor,
Here.
Teague,
Here?
Thomas,
Here.
Weiner.
Here.
All right. Well, welcome to everyone that is in your city hall. Happy to see you here. We have a room full. We're going to start with the first item on our agenda, or the second item on our agenda, 2A, which is proclamations, and the first one is Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Day. Whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed on July 26, 1990, to ensure the civil rights of persons with disabilities, and whereas July 26, 2022 marked this 32nd anniversary of the signing of the ADA, which expanded access and opportunities for people with disabilities, and whereas the ADA has done this by reducing barriers and changing perceptions, and increasing full participation in community life. And whereas the full promise of the ADA will only be reached if we remain committed to continue our efforts to fully implement this act. And whereas Iowa City affirms the principles of equality and inclusion for persons with disabilities as set forth and embodied in the ADA. And whereas the Iowa City government and residents are proud to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of our residents with disabilities. And whereas throughout the year and on the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the City of Iowa City reaffirms principles of equity and inclusion for all community members and recommits to our efforts to reach full ADA compliance. Now, therefore, I, Bruce Teague, Mayor of Iowa City, hereby proclaim July 26, 2022 as Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Day, and call upon all community members to commemorate this day, celebrate the progress that has been made, and renew our commitment to the Americans with Disabilities Act. And to receive this proclamation is Ed Asbeck, Self-Advocacy Coordinator with the Iowa's University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. So welcome. You're welcome to say some words.
Yeah. This is a big opportunity and a great honor to be here among everybody. Thank you to Iowa City for recognizing the Disabilities Act. And we still have a long way to go in encouraging people with disability to overcome their challenges towards the year, and to know that we have the power to change who we want to be. We have the power to change where we want to live. And we are part of the community. We serve people with disability among the people who are able to see and to achieve their dream and their accomplishment. So thank you so much for this confirmation.
Thank you. We are on to our consent agenda, which is items 3 through 8, and with the referral of item 6H. Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second, Taylor.
Moved by Weiner, seconded by Taylor. Is anyone in the public would like to discuss any item within the consent agenda? Before I actually open that up, I would just say the IVW Commercial Park plot, final plot is the 6H that we're deferring at the request of the developers.
And to clarify, deferring until next meeting on August 16th.
Yes, yes. Anyone from the public would like to address any item that is here? All right, seeing no one, we're going to move on to council discussion. Roll call, please.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. We're on to item number 9, which is community comment. This is an opportunity for those in the community to come forth and share some things that is not on our agenda. And we will allow, the period will end at 7 p.m. unless an extension is needed to meet a minimum of 30 minutes, but we have plenty of time today. We ask people to keep their comments to 3 minutes. And we will start with everyone giving us their name and the city they live in. And there also is a sign-in sheet at the podium, and there's also a sign-in sheet at the back of the room.
Should we go in order of who signed up?
We're going to go in order of who's in the line right now, but thank you. Welcome.
Sí.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Ninosca Campos. Estoy con Escúchame Voz y apoyando a las 319 personas que fueron excluidas de la ayuda de asistencia directa.
Hi, good evening. My name is Danielska Campos. I'm here supporting the 319 people that were excluded from the checks. I'm also with Escucha Mi Voz.
Estamos en desacuerdo donde ustedes dicen que ustedes patrocinan la mitad de las personas excluidas y el condado de Johnson da dinero a la otra mitad.
We are in disagreement of the solution you came up with, where you would pay for half and the county would pay for the other half.
El condado de Johnson cumplió su palabra repartiendo los $2 millones.
The county made their word. They gave out all $2 million.
Ellos gastaron los recursos que tenían. Ustedes prometieron dar $1.5 millones a las personas.
They completed with giving out all the resources that they just said with the $2 million. You all promised $1.5 million.
¿Y cómo es posible que ustedes digan que el condado tiene que pagar si el dinero lo tienen ustedes? Ustedes prometieron $1.5 millones, el cual no repartieron en su totalidad.
It doesn't make sense for you to have the county give more when they gave out all their $2 million and when you still have extra money, the $1.5 million to give out.
Entonces, si quieren resolver este problema, páguenle al condado de Johnson el dinero que ellos pagaron a las personas de la ciudad de Iowa City.
So to make a solution, you could pay the county for some of the people, your people, Iowa City residents, that they paid for so that they can cover the rest.
Para que venga el condado de Johnson y le dé el dinero a las personas de los otros lugares aledaños.
That way the county is able to cover the other people that are outside of Iowa City.
Porque ustedes prometieron $1.5 millones. Ustedes tenían que cumplir su palabra.
You did promise $1.5 million, and it's important to do what you say.
¿Cómo es posible que teniendo los recursos necesarios le digan al condado que tiene que dar la mitad del dinero si ustedes son los que tienen el dinero?
It seems silly for you to ask the county to give money when you do have the money in your hands to use.
Entonces, para no estar con este juego, devuélvanle al condado de Johnson el dinero que repartió a las personas de la ciudad para que venga el condado de Johnson y pague a las demás personas.
So to stop playing this game, it would be easiest if you gave the county money to cover more of your residents, and then they would have enough to cover the others.
Eso es todo, gracias.
That's all, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Emily. Emily Sinwell from Iowa City. So Iowa City was given a lot of money from ARPA. And just to put this in perspective, on a per capita basis, Iowa City was given $246 for every person. Johnson County, it's $190 per person. Coralville, $152 per person. And North Liberty, $90 per person. The $1.5 million the city initially allocated for the direct assistance could have helped Johnson County create a $3.5 million fund, enough to cover 2,500 residents. However, because of the particular way the sub-recipient agreement was written, that's not what happened. So 2,238 county residents were deemed eligible, but only 1,919 were funded. This left 319 people behind. Of the 1,428 county residents funded by Johnson County, 823 were Iowa City residents. That's 57%. Again, Johnson County paid for 823 Iowa City residents. Iowa City only funded 472 city residents. That's less than a third of the total who applied. Johnson County paid for nearly 2/3 of Iowa City residents and 75% of the total program. As a result, Johnson County exhausted its funds on Iowa City residents and did not have enough money to cover other residents. As it stands now, Iowa City only paid 25% of the total program cost, but got 67% of the benefit. We don't think this is a fair contribution by Iowa City. A supermajority of applicants came from here, and Iowa City received the vast amounts of ARPA dollars compared to non-entitlement units in the county. What I want to ask you today is what I see as the most simple, fastest, and easiest solution, and that's to reauthorize the reimbursement of an additional 319 Iowa City residents. You don't have to pay for people outside your city. Cover 319 Iowa City residents so that Johnson County has enough money to fully fund all the remaining eligible applicants. Like Ninyoska said, the county used all their $2 million, and you have lots of money left. In fact, if you do this, Johnson County will still pay more than 500 Iowa City residents, and Iowa City will still come nearly $250,000 under budget. But it will come closer to paying the fair share, given the circumstances, and everyone will win. You really are in the best position to step up and make this a fast, easy solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Please give your name and city.
Supervisor Roy Porter, Iowa City. I just come back from Denver, Colorado. I was out there for 6 days. When I got back, I had an anonymous letter in the mail which stated, Supervisor Porter, I have attached episodes of the podcast Rock Hard Caucus to this USB. You should listen to them. Iowa City TRC Chair Amel Ali says very offensive things about you and other community members, community leaders, calling you coons, describes getting intoxicated before meetings, insults your daughter's business, and describes inappropriate personal conduct on her own part, including driving while intoxicated and prostituting herself to sugar daddies. To the Iowa City Council from the Black Voices Leadership Team, regarding racism and slander perpetrated by TRC Chair Amel Ali. Last week, it came to our attention that Amel Ali, who was appointed to the Ad Hoc Truth and Reconciliation Commission by the Iowa City Council and selected by TRC members to serve as chair, has appeared on a local podcast, Rock Hard Caucus, on more than once, to slander local black leaders. She has called out a number of Black Voices Project members and other community leaders by name, using the most racist and offensive terms, calling out Supervisor Roy Porter, body shaming, and calling out her and her daughter Stacy Porter, which do not bear repeating in this correspondence. This is far more than an extension of the disagreement between current TRC members and BVP members who had previously resigned from the TRC. She has verbally attacked a whole swath of our local community leaders, a choice wholly inconsistent with the charge of the commission she is supposed to be leading. We call on all members of the council to listen to the June 9th and June 16th Rock Hard Caucus podcast episodes and consider the message you are sending when your appointed representative is publicly degrading members of the very community with whom your TRC is supposed to be working to repair fractured relationship. Her choice to speak this way clearly demonstrates that she is not capable of leading us toward reconciliation. She should resign, and we urge you to go into executive session ASAP to remove her and make Chastity Dillard your new chair so that the TRC can move forward. And I just want to say, if you don't remove her soon, I'm telling you now, we will remove her. So it's best if you don't want to hear the slander. You all appointed her to the TRC. You appointed her as your chair, and she is not representation of our council. Thank you. Of our community.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Orville Townsend, 713 Whiting Avenue. My topic is the same as Ms. Porter's. I was disappointed that this young lady chose to use my name. I don't know her. I don't know why she would, but I guess she felt like she said, I'm just tired, an old, tired person, which means that's age discrimination, and that I should just pull aside and get out of the way. I want to make two things perfectly clear. First, I respect an individual's right to freedom of speech. Therefore, I respect what she said. Where I have a problem is I understand that you have recently appointed her to one of your commissions. And I feel that any person that would go to this extent to treat fellow citizens verbally the way that she has no right to be in any position where she's representing citizens or anything that the city has to do with. So therefore, I'm requesting that you remove her from any commission or committee that you've appointed her to, and that you bar her from future participation on committees. I'm for public service. I've done everything I could to try to help our city be a better place. But it really irks me when I see an individual who just I don't know what it is, ignorance, I don't know, that would go to this extent to just tear other citizens down that she doesn't know personally. I mean, personal feelings are personal. You should keep them to yourself, or you should pay a consequence. And I think this young lady should witness consequences based upon her behavior. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Mi nombre es María Figueroa.
My name is Maria Figueroa.
Vivo en las trailas de Breckenridge.
I live in the mobile homes of Breckenridge.
Estoy aquí porque fui excluida de la ayuda de 1,400 que está dando el condado de Johnson.
I'm here because I was excluded from the checks, the $1,400 that the county was giving out.
Solo para pedirle que por favor seamos incluidas otra vez en esta ayuda de 1,400.
I would like to ask you, please, that you make us included again in this help of $1,400.
Por favor, si la ayuda la tiene la ciudad de Iowa City o el condado, porque yo estoy confundida, porque yo tenía entendido que yo vivía en la ciudad de Iowa City.
Please, if Iowa City has the money or the county has the money, I'm confused. I thought I lived in Iowa City.
Pero ahora sé que el lote de trailers donde estoy es del condado de Johnson, pero yo sé que estoy en la ciudad de Iowa City.
But now I know that my trailer is in the county of Johnson City, but I am in Iowa City. Or sorry, is in Johnson County, but I am in Iowa City.
Es confundido para mí.
It's confusing for me.
Pero mi dirección dice Iowa City.
My address says Iowa City.
Oh, pero tengo un hijo de... Oh, sí. Okay. Sí. Tengo un hijo, en realidad tengo 3 hijos ciudadanos. Tengo un hijo con autismo.
The truth is I have 3 children who are citizens. I have 1 child who has autism.
Y por favor, solo les pido a la ciudad de Iowa City si hacen un acuerdo con el condado de Johnson y por favor nos pueden incluir otra vez para esta ayuda de 1,400 que sería una gran ayuda para mí.
And I'm just asking, please, if you can make a way to work with the county to give out the $1,400 checks. This would be a huge help for me.
Sí, es para la ayuda para mi familia, para mi trailer, para poder hacerle arreglos a mi trailer, por favor.
It would be help for me, for my family, specifically to make improvements on my trailer.
Gracias por escucharnos.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Welcome.
Bienvenido.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es María Flores.
Good afternoon, my name is Maria Flores.
Soy una de las personas excluidas.
I'm one of the people that were excluded.
Vengo aquí para exigir.
I'm here to ask or like, yeah, strongly ask.
El cheque porque yo dice que yo soy elegible.
For the check because it said I was eligible.
Y cuando estuvo la pandemia, a mí no me excluyó la pandemia de no tener trabajo.
I wasn't excluded from the pandemic. No tener trabajo. ¿Tenías trabajo?
De no tener trabajo.
I didn't have work.
A mí no me excluyó la pandemia de estar decidiendo a ver a quién tiene el dinero, quién no.
The pandemic didn't exclude me by saying like who had the money and who didn't.
A mí no me excluyó la pandemia de estar pensando si te lo voy a dar o no te lo voy a dar. Cuando fui afectada,
The pandemic didn't exclude me when it came to choices if they would give me the money or not.
cuando tengo deudas a causa de la pandemia, a punto de perder mi casa,
Lots of debts because of the pandemic, almost losing my house.
pienso que este cheque fue para todo el mundo.
I feel like this money is supposed to be for everyone in the world.
Y creo que son muchas vueltas las que se están dando para que todavía estén pensando si nos lo dan o no.
We're having to do a lot, even just to see if they're going to give it to us or not.
Cuando hay suficiente dinero para dárnoslo.
Sí, sigue. Oh, especially when there's enough money to give out.
Eso es todo.
Okay, gracias.
Great, thank you. We have some people also online, so I'm going to switch to a few people here. We're going to welcome Amel. Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for giving me this chance to speak candidly. My words and comments contained in the released recording were wrong. They were ill-considered, and most of all, they were hurtful. And for all of that, I'm deeply sorry. Trauma begets trauma in many ways. I made those harmful comments at a time when I was experiencing trauma, personally, while under the challenges of navigating my role in the context of this commission. The recording with my comments was released, in my view, or at least in part, to disrupt our important work to address the continuous harm BIPOC communities experience, particularly following the murder of George Floyd and many others thereafter. Telling the truth about harmful experiences, healing from harm, making repairs, and reconciliation are the pillars of our work. Despite the call by the mayor and others to have me resign, I can't walk away and turn my back on the trust, hope, and responsibilities entrusted to all of us on this commission. Resignation to the way things are has been the default of too many communities for too long. Let's put our words over these last few years to the test and follow through on forgiveness, belonging, and truth. You may not always like what you hear, but like me, we will be bringing our community to the table to share their experience. It might not feel good to hear, but it's not to shame you or anyone. It's to tell the truth about my experience that isn't privileged or valued. We took our lead from those in South Africa where women spoke about their trauma, and the entire world stopped to listen. Here in the United States, it made an undeniable impact on all of us. Reverend Nelson Johnson, the co-founder of the Greensboro Truth Commission, sat down face-to-face with the Grand Wizard of the KKK because he believed they had to face hard truths. Can we not do this here? I submit the only way forward is a restorative justice process, one which I'm currently trying to use to address harm someone else caused me. I've learned a great deal about myself through this harm I caused, and will continue to learn and heal with this community and the mental health professionals that are supporting me. I truly believe in the notion that forgiveness does not change the past, but it does enlarge the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the next caller online. Anna, welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Anna Gudenkoff, and I live in Iowa City. It is my understanding that over the past week, TRC Chair Amel Ali has been under attack by a handful of community members asking for her removal. I want to state my complete confidence in her work. Ali has regularly been a target of racist and homophobic harassment from Iowa City community members in her time on the commission, and despite this, has continued to be a unifying leader. She has helped move the TRC forward despite constant challenging by community members and council members uninterested in a racial justice reckoning. I am grateful for Ali's tireless work both on the TRC and in her community care in Iowa City. I ask that council consider a restorative justice process for recent events and that she remain the head of the TRC and continue the amazing work the commission has been working on. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to do one more from online, then we're going to come back in person. Welcome, Felicia.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Hi, my name's Felicia Pieper, and I live in Iowa City. I'd also like to speak in support of Commissioner Amel Ali, and I would like to say that on top of the other comments that have been made in support of Commissioner Ali, that there's been a disturbing trend since the protests in 2020 of disparaging and just even ignoring Black progressive female leaders. As another commenter already spoke about, Amel specifically has faced a lot of harassment and disparaging comments, both as a Black person and as a queer person. And I wish I could say that this was unique, but it's a pattern that's been continuing to go on. I also want to just go back to the beginning of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and point out that when IFR demanded for this commission to be put in place, that the city fundamentally removed any of the people power that the commission should have had. And I still support Raneem Hanamad and her resignation as that unfolded. I would say that what is happening right now is predictable and it's unfortunate. I support Amel Ali fully. She continues to do good work, not only in her job and her everyday life, but in her free time regularly through mutual aid. And this is clearly something that she's very passionate and good at. I find it very disturbing that both Black and white people continue to go out of their way to target Amel Ali, and this needs to stop. I fully support Amel staying on the TRC as commissioner and look forward to seeing the work that she continues to do. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a total of 13 people that we have Natalie still online that I will acknowledge in a little bit. And we have 13 people. I'm not sure if we have 14. But in order to get everyone in, I'm going to drop the minutes down to 2 minutes. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Brisny García Rivera.
Good evening. My name is Brisny Garcia Rivera.
Yo vivo en Iowa City, en las trailas del Scott Boulevard.
I live in Iowa City. The trailers off of Scott Boulevard.
Soy una de las personas que quedó excluida de este beneficio del cheque de estímulo.
I was one of the people that were excluded from this benefit check.
De lo que yo tengo entendido, en mi dirección sale que yo soy una persona que vive en Iowa City.
What I understood was I was a person, according to my address, that I live in Iowa City.
No entiendo por qué nos han excluido a las personas que no somos del centro de Iowa City, porque hemos sido excluidas si nosotros vivimos en Iowa City.
I don't understand why we're being excluded just because we don't live in the center part of Iowa City.
Para mí esto es como una discriminación, porque yo trabajo aquí, trabajo en restaurantes que son de Iowa City, que ayudan a la economía de aquí, de esta ciudad.
For me, this feels like a discrimination. I work here in Iowa City, the restaurants, I contribute to the economy here.
Así como las 319 personas que hemos quedado excluidas.
Just like the 319 people that have been excluded.
Entonces, yo sé que ustedes tienen ese dinero para poder ayudar a las 319 personas que hemos quedado excluidas.
I do know that you all have the money to be able to help the 319 people that were excluded.
Por favor, les pedimos que haga una solución, porque la verdad es cansado estar aquí siempre, pero yo sé que vale la pena.
Please, we ask you to come up with a solution. It's getting really tiring to come up here over and over. I know it's worth it, but...
Ha sido un año de tanta lucha para que esta ayuda se diera.
It's been a long year, a lot of fighting, so that we could get some help, some of this help.
Y gracias a Dios que se le pudo dar a algunas personas, pero decepcionada porque no fueron a todas.
And thanks to God, it was a lot of people were able to get help, but others were deceived.
Yo soy madre de familia, tengo 2 hijos, estoy aquí luchando por mi marido y por las 319 personas que hemos quedado excluidas, y por favor les pido que si ustedes tienen esos fondos para poder ayudarnos, que por favor no estén diciendo que si nosotros damos esto y las otras personas y el condado de esto. Si ustedes saben que ustedes son los que tienen ese dinero para poder ayudarnos, la verdad somos 319 personas que estamos a la deriva.
I'm a mama too, with my husband. Please, please don't go asking the county to give this money if you have the ability, have the money in hands to help these people that were excluded.
Buenas tardes, Dios los bendiga.
Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Jenna McCoy from Iowa City, and I'm here as a friend of Escucha Mi Voice as well, because I'd like to see the ARPA funds get fairly distributed here. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the work you've already put into this, and we know it's been a long year, and we're coming to the end, and we think there's a really simple solution. So Johnson County funded over 800 people that are Iowa City residents. None of this, they live on the other side. They actually live in Iowa City. There are now 319 people that live on the other side of that city line that are technically Johnson County residents and not part of Iowa City. So what we think would be the best solution is for Iowa City to simply pay Johnson County for those 319 people. It was a little upsetting to hear about asking Johnson County to pay 50% of it, because the money for Iowa City is there, and Johnson County already paid so many Iowa City residents. Iowa City would still come out ahead of not having to pay around 500 people, if we do 800 minus 300, that Iowa City doesn't have to pay. So if Iowa City gives the money to Johnson County, they still come out in a positive number, and then those 319 people are able to be funded by Johnson County. And then the whole thing's over. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi. My husband and I planned for, we wrote our remarks out to fall within 3 minutes each, and it's not going to make any sense if we stop at 2. So we'll yield our time, but can you tell us how we can get on the agenda for the next meeting?
You have up to 2 minutes right now.
It's not going to make sense.
Okay.
You know.
We meet again on the 16th.
I know, but how can we get onto the agenda?
We meet again on the 16th.
But this is, the comment section is different from the agenda section.
Right. You won't be able to get on the agenda.
We
But you have the opportunity now to speak.
Comment.
Well, as I
Comment
said,
time.
it's not going to make any sense.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So what you're saying is that we could come back to be on the comment section.
Correct.
But the agenda is set by the council? Is it?
Either you can comment now or you can come back. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, Justin Fishbaugh, Iowa City. I'm here this evening to point out some of the cost analysis highlights of the 228-page Parks and Recreation Department's Condition of Pools report, which is this thing if you haven't seen it. The report, Condition of Pools report, that support the idea of fixing the Robert A. Lee Pool. If you haven't had a chance to view this report, it became available at the July 13th Parks and Recreation meeting and is available online. In that report, WT Engineering Group looked at the condition of the 3 Iowa City pools. Williams Architects looked at the buildings that house the pools, and Barry Dunn Consultants presented results of a public survey and made recommendations for a future direction. Okay, here's the important part. What WT Engineering and Williams Architects show is that Robert A. Lee Pool and Natatorium could be repaired for a total of $579,000. This is nowhere near the $4.5 to $5 million figure reported to the public to repair the pool. The difference is because expenses for Robert A. Lee Pool repairs are being lumped into the cost for the entire RAL building and then reported as the cost to fix the pool. I'm going to go ahead and move on here. So in conclusion, the WT Engineering report says that the RAL pool is in fair condition for its age. It doesn't leak water. And if repairs are made, Iowa City would operate the pool for many years for a cost of less than $600,000. That's 8 times less than what's being reported. the Friends of RAL Pool, some of which are in the back there, and more than 280 people have signed on in support, and I recommend making this investment so that we can have a top-notch swimming facility as an important part of our vibrant downtown. And I prepared a packet of specific pages from the report to help you understand the costs, if I can leave that with you. Thank you.
You can. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. We're going to go online to Natalie. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Natalie, and I am calling to express my unmitigated support for Amel. What happened is a targeted attack against an incredible Black activist in Iowa. It's outrageous. Amel has worked so hard. She's a powerhouse, and every single day I'm dazzled by her. She's the hardest working, most spectacular activist I've ever met. I'm honored to be her friend and to work with her. I support her 100%. This is a targeted campaign latching onto anything to disparage a Black femme activist. The podcast was with friends behind a paywall, and it was stolen and released in a racist attack. Amel is my hero. She's a tireless fighter. This is outrageous, racist, and a distraction, and I stand behind her 100%.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
Welcome.
My name is Ann Houlihan, and I'm a citizen, a resident of Coralville, and a volunteer at the Iowa City Catholic Worker Houses. I was disappointed to hear Iowa City Council say that Johnson County should step up to help fund the 319 excluded workers. Most of the $2 million spent by Johnson County went to Iowa City residents. Whereas Iowa City paid for 472 residents, Johnson County paid for 827 Iowa City residents. So about half of Iowa City's contribution has been or will be refunded to the city. These are federal dollars intended for pandemic relief. If Iowa City refunded the allotment for 319 of the Iowa City residents paid for by Johnson County, all the supplicants can receive the $1,400 payments. Thank you for your consideration. And I would like to say that the pickleball courts at Mercer are better since they're being patched, but I look forward to when they will be redone. So, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi. My name is Sharon DeGraw, and I've been working in the North Side area on a petition with my friend Amy Krakowski, and we've asked to have a meeting with the council members to take in what our understanding is after we've spoken to many of the neighbors in the North Side and the Manville Heights area, and we'll span out how the city park pool is used. We're getting an overall consensus that many people didn't know there was going to be a major change made or is proposed, and many people do appreciate the idea that the pool would retain its original footprint and could have a zero entry along one side of the 18-inch depth, the shallow end, and that for the little kid pool, perhaps that could be expanded with some of the amenities that are like sprayers and I don't know what else, but it's a very beautiful, tranquil pool, and there are many people that are surprised that it could change radically. So we hope that you can listen to us talk to you for about 20 minutes and tell you a series of bullet points that we hope you'll appreciate and digest. That's it.
Thank you. Welcome. And there are stickers in the back for people to write their name on, and they can place the sticker up there so that people are aware. But welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Put this up here. I'm also here to express, I'm a friend of the Robert A. Lee Pool, and I'm also here to express my support for rejecting the recommendation to redesign.
What's your name and city?
Amy Krakowski, Iowa City.
Thank you.
Sorry. The City Park Pool is, for me, what makes summer here in Iowa City really, really incredibly special. And I'm not alone. In the past 2 weeks, we've collected over 220 signatures from swimmers of all ages who oppose the new design because it's going to reduce the current lap lanes down to 3, from 9 to 3, and it doesn't retain the current pool's aesthetic or the original character. I honestly don't know how the current and future users of Iowa City's current pools are going to be accommodated by 3 outdoor lap lanes in the summer and just the Mercer pool for the rest of the year. It doesn't make any sense, and it's really not what the community wants. The city should keep the current traditional footprint of the city park pool, fix it, repair it, replace it, by all means, add a zero entry, add new spray features, but please don't take away the existing features of this pool that are used and loved the most. One final note, the Parks and Rec Commission voted to recommend this to City Council at their May 23rd meeting. The public comment period didn't close until June 4th. For this reason alone, the City Council should reject the recommendation because it was made without the benefit of full public input. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can just fill out a thingy down there and just drop it off?
Yes.
All right.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Hine. I live here in Iowa City, and I am on the Pickleball Johnson County Advisory Board. I'm here to talk about how we in Iowa City need new and additional pickleball courts at Mercer Park and in Iowa City. We have 483 members of Pickleball Johnson County. And Pickleball Johnson County uses a program called Playtime Scheduler, where we can sign up for a game and people can join in with that game. During the month of July, we had 977 players sign up through Playtime Scheduler to play just at Mercer, which averages out 31.5 players per day. This does not count the number of players that do not belong to Pickleball Johnson County and that do not use Playtime Scheduler. There are many families that come out at night and on weekends with their children. There are numerous young people, college students that play. We have seen groups from churches, residents, medical groups, friends, coworkers, et cetera, that will play together that do not belong to Pickleball Johnson County, and we've tried to tell them about Playtime Schedule, and they just want to come for fun. So those numbers do not, that 922 for July, do not count people that have not signed up for that. The wind barriers at Mercer have been torn and mostly taken down as there's no way to repair them, to put them back up. So we found a sponsor that paid for new wind barriers at a cost of $4,500, and those wind barriers are ordered and should be coming soon, and that $4,500 did not come out of any city budget. So 2 weeks ago or so, a bench showed up at Mercer pickleball courts, and we absolutely love it, and we want to thank whoever brought it. But we would like to ask for more benches. There's 3 benches sitting at the little building in between the 2 parking lots at Mercer that no one uses. If we could get those moved over to the park, we need a place where we can sit down and put our court shoes on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello, my name is Myra Clark, and I live in Coralville. I am a member of the Pickleball Johnson County. I'm also a pickleball ambassador and give free pickleball lessons. There's 2 more ambassadors. One is Dwayne Miller in North Liberty and Jim Broffett in Iowa City. We all give pickleball lessons, and they're all free. It's a volunteer job. As Mary Ellen said, we're growing, and it's going to continue growing. We have lessons Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday at Green State Family Fieldhouse, Mercer Park Outdoor Pickleball Courts. We're giving lessons at City Park in Iowa City, and lessons have been given at the Iowa City Rec Center, Robert A. Lee. So I've been averaging 4 new pickleball players a day. That's 16 per week. So the numbers are growing, and we're going to need more pickleball courts in the future. It is to everyone's benefit if the city pickleball courts are well maintained and have the amenities such as a shaded rest area, water fountains, and, of course, benches. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Jim Broffett, a resident of Iowa City, and I also want to talk about pickleball and mainly just the courts I play at in Alabama. There are 2 cities right next to each other, just like Iowa City and Coralville, very similar in size. One is Auburn, or the home of Auburn University, and the other is Opelika, which is smaller, kind of like Coralville. The total population of those 2 towns in 2019 was about 10,000 less than Coralville and Iowa City. In 2019, they finished some state-of-the-art courts. You can't see the pictures from here. I can leave some of these. But there are 12 courts. There are 3 rows of 4 courts, and in between the rows they have aisles with benches. And those are places for people to sit between games or congregate to talk. We really need something like that at Mercer Park. Sometimes we have 50 people there at one time, and there's no place for us to congregate. In fact, you can't play on some of the courts because people are standing basically on top of the courts. So aisles are a great feature that we don't have now. The other thing is they have a canopy over these 12 courts, and the last time I was there, which was last September, I played with my grandson in a pouring rain. We didn't get wet. So that's another great feature, and I would suggest that you consider these kind of courts for Iowa City. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Jerome Kirby, he, him, his, Iowa City resident. Nice to put a face next to some of the names I've seen on signs throughout the community. I am one of the younger people from pickleball. You probably couldn't tell that. But I like to go out and play with them. Sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. I will say that the courts out at Mercer Park have been a gem, and the nice thing for us is still establish community as we rebound from COVID-19. I think it would be nice to just shine that gem up for us. There's 8 courts out there. A lot of them cracked. I know that y'all are going out there and patching, but the patching y'all are doing is a little slick too, so it's not really a safest thing for people that are a little bit more in age and a little bit mobile, limited. I do run for the ball sometimes too to help out, and sometimes I slip as well. I also think that the shading out there is somewhat good, but we end up with a lot of leaves and branches out on some of the courts, so 8 courts really drops down to 6 pretty easily, and then sometimes down to 4. I would appreciate if y'all could just increase the number of courts. If that's too big of an ask, then try to take care of our courts a little bit more. I've traveled out to North Liberty. It's great out there, but they don't have the gates in between, which Mercer does. So always going to play at my home court in Mercer because I live on the east side. Also, if I could do one shout out, these are not good. They don't stick at all. So please get yourself some new little labels as well. But I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Mohammed Traore, reside in Tiffin, Iowa, and speaking at this time as just myself and not as a member of a commission. I'd like to speak in support of the Excluded Workers Fund and I'd like to point to some of the strategic priorities of Iowa City while I address this. So it says that you're looking to foster a more inclusive, just, and sustainable Iowa City by prioritizing the physical, mental, and economic well-being of all residents. And that a key piece of that is to advance social justice, racial equity, and human rights. So in the
continue.
So in the human rights aspect, I'd just like to bring up that imagine having to come up here and look at all of you, knowing that there was an opportunity at the time an agreement was made to make it ironclad so that I could receive, not myself, but so I could receive a $1,400 check that I've been begging you for a year so that I could pay to put food on the table for my kids or pay the bills. And you do know that my mobile home is going to have the rent increase by $200 or more in the coming months. And that it's still a decision of, yes, we have to figure out how it's done. Would I feel like my human rights are being respected or advanced? But also, in addition to that, promoting an inclusive and resilient economy throughout the city. Also knowing that throughout the pandemic that I worked in the city and made sure that your essential services were running. And that at this time, I also got sick with this very disease that you got to stay home and avoid. And that for many of those same people, that they have lingering health issues. And on top of that, that they missed more work because of that. And in some cases, were not reimbursed. And yet again, standing here in front of you, begging you to make me whole or to try. All the while knowing that it's a question of effort rather than having the resources when it comes to whether you can actually accomplish this goal of making sure that the remaining 319 are made whole. So when it comes to a strategic plan, can you give a strategic reason as to why you would not support the remaining 319 and do everything you can to make sure they're whole? And with that, I yield the floor.
Thank you. So I'm going to take one other person that is online. Welcome, Shay.
Hello, can you all hear me okay?
Yes, welcome.
My name is Shay. I'm a resident here in Iowa City. I'd like the council to consider allowing Amel Ali to hold her current position despite the negative comments being made about her. Amel is loved by this community. She has went above and beyond to support the people of color here in Iowa City. When it appears that we have no other support, she's the most outgoing and respected person I know. I truly do look up to her, and I pray that Amel's positive intentions go noticed during these times. She has had such a positive impact, a positive and big impact here on the youth here in Iowa City, in the Iowa City schools. As someone that aspires to become as active in my community as Mel is, I would love to continue seeing women of color and Black women specifically hold these positions in council. In this climate that we currently live in, our youth needs representation. So thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone that was a part of the comment time. We're going to move on to items 10, planning and zoning matters. Item 10A is rezoning Monument Hills. Ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately 64.37 acres of property located north of Rochester Avenue and west of North Scott Boulevard from interim development, single-family residential, to low-density single-family residential with a planned development overlay, and 0.31 acres to interim development, single-family with a planned development overlay. I'm going to open the public hearing. And we're going to start with staff Danielle Stutzman. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Danielle Stutzman, Neighborhood and Development Services. As the mayor stated, this is a rezoning application with two different zoning districts requested as part of the rezoning in an area we commonly call Monument Hills. Shown here, outlined in a white box and labeled as parcel A and B. The majority of the rezoning would be for parcel A, which would be designated as a planned district overlay and a low-density single-family district, and then a remnant parcel B, retaining its interim development residential status, but adding the overlay district zone to it. That is an area where there's an existing development of a cell tower, which was approved through a special exception in 2009. For orientation purposes, along the bottom edge here is Rochester. Along the right-hand side, or the eastern side, is North Scott Boulevard. To the north is Harvest Preserve, and to the west is existing single-family development on Larch Lane. Also, just to the southeast, along the intersection of Scott Boulevard and Rochester Avenue is commercial neighborhood commercial development, Old Town Village. Both Scott Boulevard and Rochester Avenue are designated as arterial streets in the city's street network. The applicant in this case is Representative Mike Welch. He may be joining us online, or he may not be able to speak, depending on his technical savvy tonight. The application is on behalf of Monument Farms LLC, who are the owners of the land along in this parcel and some surrounding area. It is not the Harvest Preserve ownership. Like I said, that is located farther to the north. This exhibit shows the existing zoning in the area, largely single-family residential, and as I mentioned, the neighborhood commercial shown in red. And again, this is an exhibit showing the two proposed requested rezonings tonight. And as I mentioned, the smaller parcel B is an existing cell phone tower. Because this is a planned development request for rezoning, it does include some additional details you would not normally see at a rezoning. It includes a sensitive areas development plan, which is similar to a site plan. That's because of the sensitive areas, wetlands, and slopes that are included in this land, and the request for waivers from some of the baseline development standards to accommodate preservation of those sensitive features. So this is the overlay plan and sensitive areas development plan, preliminary one. It does show the network of streets that would be developed by the developer here, essentially a loop network connecting to Rochester of public streets, and then a segment of private street along the southeast corner there, where there are more colorful blocks outlined indicating future housing development or senior community. So the color coding there is the white lots to the left are all single family. To the right in the senior community, the kind of lighter blue color is single family. The reds are duplexes, and the purple is a multifamily building that's proposed, as well as a clubhouse for it as well. There are outlots included in this development labeled as outlot A, B, and C. So there are large areas that will not be developed as part of this because they are the areas that contain those sensitive features. And the development is clustering itself elsewhere to avoid impacting those as much as possible. One of those large outlots is outlot A, which actually falls to the west of this development between itself and the existing single family to the west, farther west. One of the conditions of the rezoning, as I mentioned, is related to the cell phone tower preserving the private access arrangement that cell phone tower has. And I'll go over that again when we get to the end of the presentation and talk about the conditions the staff recommended. Because this is a OPD or a planned development overlay rezoning, there are additional rezoning criteria that are reviewed in addition to the general rezoning criteria that we look at for all rezonings. The general rezoning criteria have to do with the comprehensive plan and compatibility with the existing neighborhood, and then 4 additional criteria that we'll go through here. So starting with those general criteria having to do with essentially compliance with the comprehensive plan. In this part of town, there is a district plan, and I'll go over that in a second, but the basics of the comprehensive plan itself encourage conservation design because they acknowledge that large areas of this part of town do have sensitive features. So encouraging clustering of development out of the sensitive features as much as possible, and then also interconnecting trails and networks, trails and sidewalks as networks for getting around. This is essentially a cluster development in compliance with the comprehensive plan. 65 acres, or roughly half of the total area, will remain undeveloped when this is realized as this is proposed. As I mentioned, there's also a district plan. There's the Northeast District Plan. The applicant did provide an overlay showing how their proposed development overlays when compared to the Northeast District Plan. Essentially, the Northeast District Plan encouraged and identified this area as the Bluffwood neighborhood, encouraged concentrating development along the arterials and included a variety of housing types kind of to buffer between that and the single-family neighborhoods around it. Obviously, the Harvest Preserve is not realizing the style of development as it's intended to simply preserve the land for use as a private open space. So things change over time, and to adjust to that, the street network cannot obviously connect in the same ways that were originally envisioned when the district planning process occurred. However, staff does feel that this is an adequate street network, working with the conditions that are there now and ensuring that there would be a connected street network system. So it generally aligns with the concept and policy vision of the Northeast Plan. Just a little bit more specific about some of the ideals and goals expressed in the Northeast District Plan, especially related to trails. This shows a highlight of the trail network connection being extended, and the purple line there on the upper left corner of the slide, showing a future trail connection to Calder Park. So to support that policy direction, staff has requested a condition for a 10-foot wide trail connection and construction of that trail as part of future development. Talking about compatibility with the existing neighborhood now, again, this shows the outline in red of the proposed rezoning and how it relates to those other existing developments in the area. The proposed development is generally consistent with existing neighborhood character, focusing on housing and single-family housing, but also including a mix of other development as expressed in the senior community included as part of this proposal. So to move on to talk about the specific criteria now as relate to the OPD or the Sensitive Areas Development Plan rezoning, we'll go through those just briefly here. These are the additional criteria that were reviewed by the staff and Planning and Zoning Commission. As it relates to land use, the density of this development would be only about two dwelling units per acre, just under 2 dwelling units per acre, which is well below the limit of 5 dwelling units per acre allowed by the base zoning that's being requested. So it does meet the density requirements overall, even with the clustering of development. And of course, the use as housing and providing a variety of housing is in line with the intended goals of the comprehensive plan. Talking about the design now a little bit, looking at things like mass scale and general layout. Predominantly, this is a house scale development, single-family homes, both single-family and duplexes. Like I mentioned, there will be a multifamily building proposed at the intersection of the two arterial streets. It would still only be 2 stories in height and approximately 29 units. So focusing that multifamily development and buffering it from the additional single-family development around it. They have requested a waiver from the base zoning requirements of RS5 to allow for some of the lot sizes in that senior community to be somewhat smaller than the base zoning, which is 60 feet, reducing that down to 56 feet of lot width instead. They've also requested a waiver from the requirements for duplexes to only be allowed on corner lots. In this case, they're including 3 duplexes, only one of which would be on a corner lot. The other 2 would be interior lots. And those are shown here in red. So again, this is the senior living component of the rezoning, showing the blue lots, which would have slightly smaller lot widths, and the red lots, which would be the duplex lots. And again, the purple being the multifamily. They have included some renderings, which were included in your packet, showing the single-family housing, the duplex-style housing, and the multifamily housing. Those concepts would be tied to the rezoning as well, so that future development it occurs in a way that is compatible with having slightly more density and ensuring that things like garages don't dominate the view. Moving on to open space, the development would be required to comply with both public and private open space requirements. In this case, that has to do with a certain amount of private open space based on number of dwelling units in the multifamily, as well as a square footage requirement for each single family lot. They are in compliance with those requirements. They also would be required to provide public open space, either through dedication of land, or they have the ability to choose a fee in lieu option instead. They've indicated they prefer to do the fee in lieu and are instead also constructing a trail segment in an easement to ensure the connections that matter for this neighborhood. Again, we did look at light views and air and property surrounded by this. Whenever we look at a planned development, we always compare it to the potential impacts of a conventional development. This development is definitely clustering and providing a significant amount of land in outlots where development would not be occurring, and is providing more than probably a conventional development would as far as open light and views throughout the development. Finally, touching on streets and utilities, we did analyze whether there was sufficient capacity for this development. There certainly is. We also had the developer provide a traffic study to analyze the impacts of additional development on the street network. The street network is sufficient to handle all of the proposed development. There would be a water pressure study that would be a follow-up and would occur at planning, just to ensure that if there are any improvements needed for water pressure in this neighborhood, that they are addressed at that stage. Another condition that was required in the final waiver is that there would be some dedication of right-of-way needed along the intersection of North Scott and Rochester to facilitate perhaps city improvements in the future for a roundabout. Because of that dedication of land, there is a need for a waiver from the baseline setbacks in this area to accommodate the right-of-way that the city needs. That right-of-way does not impact the air, light, and views of the property or put neighbors too close together because of it, so it meets city code requirements as well. So that area in the pink on the screen is the right-of-way dedication that would impact slightly the setback of the multifamily building. As I mentioned, there are sensitive areas in this development, significant ones. The sensitive areas ordinance is intended to allow development, but to still preserve those sensitive areas. So because of the impacts to wetlands and slopes on the site, they did have to prepare a study showing where those sensitive features are located and quantifying their impacts. Those impacts were presented in their sensitive areas development plan. In this case, the wetlands that are being impacted are largely because of the need for road development. They've tried to minimize those. There are some slight impacts to wetlands because of sidewalks as well. There is also an existing, rather large, on the northwest corner of the slide, an existing conservation easement already in place. This development does qualify for several kind of flexibilities that are built in for wetlands, both having to do with where the buffers for the wetlands are determined to need to be. They can be averaged in width. They can also be reduced and have a mitigation bank payment made. In this case, a wetland specialist did study these wetlands and made proposals so that the most important parts of the wetland could be adequately preserved, and then any mitigation would be sufficient to offset those impacts for the road network and the sidewalks. Mentioning sensitive slopes, our ordinance basically classifies slopes as steep, steeper, and steepest. Only the steepest of slopes are those that have to be completely protected and not impacted. The steep and steeper slopes, or basically steep and critical, can be impacted as long as they're quantified and then minimized as much as possible. So this exhibit does show they're only impacting those two lower designations for slopes, and that they are quantifying those here in the exhibit. So as far as process goes, we're at the rezoning step for the two different rezonings that I mentioned. There would be additional steps to follow for prelim and final platting, and then final sensitive areas development plans, which would ensure that what's being represented here is fulfilled as development occurs. There would be site plans and building permits as well. So based on review of the relevant general and specific criteria, staff did recommend approval of the proposed rezoning with several conditions. Those included the dedication of a private access easement for that cell tower, as I mentioned, the dedication of a public access easement along a public trail, as I described there, and the construction of a 10-foot wide trail in that easement. Dedication of right-of-way to the city to allow for potential improvements at Rochester and North Scott. And then finally, some traffic calming that was expressed here, including raised sidewalks and roundabouts within the development, that those should be continued to be described and approved as part of those additional land development steps at platting. At its July 6th meeting, by a vote of 6-0, the Planning and Zoning Commission concurred with staff's opinion and also recommended approval. The applicant did conduct a good neighbor meeting in May, and the conditional zoning agreement has been signed tonight. If you can see Mike online, he was going to try to be available for questions, but I'm certainly happy to answer questions on behalf of staff.
Okay, well, thank you. If anyone has questions for Danielle and Mike, I do see you are present, so if anyone has questions for Mike, they can speak as well. I do have a question. For the dedicated access easement, which is still up, which is great, I guess my question is, what is the ongoing cost that the city sees with these dedications?
Are you asking about the public easement for the trail?
Yes.
Okay, so the trail, its original construction would be the responsibility of the developer, and then trail maintenance would fall to the city after its original construction.
Yeah. Okay, great. Any other questions? Thank you. And then we're going to go to public comment, unless the developer had anything to add that staff did not mention. Welcome.
Good evening. Our development team here tonight consists of Mike Welch, who is online and available for questions and answers, Heather Ropp with Ewing Group and Vintage Cooperative, and myself, Joe Clark with Monument Hills. As a fellow Eastsider and local land developer and broker, I will actively be involved in planning, development, and sales of these lots over the next several years, as I did with my previous developments in Windmill Heights and Tamarack Ridge. I have 5 key points I'm going to present tonight pretty quickly. On rezoning, the Comprehensive Plan, Northeast District Plan, and Bluffwood Neighborhood plans are land use scenarios intended to be general guides that may occur in this neighborhood. The principles set forth in these plans were used closely by our development team in creating the concept being brought before you tonight. Many different concepts were created and reworked prior to the submittal of this current concept. In fact, the Good Neighbor meeting held in June allowed our team to see that 6 lots on the west side of the existing plan would need to be removed in efforts to satisfy the neighbors at Rochester Hills. We now have reached what we believe is the best plan for this particular parcel. Number 2 is environmental features in sensitive areas. The beautiful older, more mature trees in Outlot B are being preserved, and additional street trees are being added to the new development with the landscaping plan. The project has also met the 50% woodland retention threshold imposed by the city. This has allowed us to preserve almost 33 acres of land in the conservation easement. Sensitive slopes, woodlands, and stream corridors were taken into consideration when choosing where to place roads and housing. These items limited the options our team had when designing the current plan. Number 3, city staff is in full support of our plan and rezoning. It has been over a year since the first conversation we had about this development. The city staff has been very cooperative and helpful throughout the process. We have reached an agreeable condition zoning agreement that has been signed by all parties. These land projects take a lot of time and a lot of money to get started, and we are thankful to have produced such a wonderful project that is agreeable with all the city staff. Number 4 is P&Z staff are unanimously in support of this development. On July 6th, the P&Z staff voted 6-0 in favor of the rezoning request. Almost all favorable comments were given at this meeting, including the 3 neighbors that showed up for the meeting. The P&Z members believe there is a great diversity of housing types within the plan and the appropriate amount of preservation. Chair member Mike Hench is quoted as saying, "I don't recall seeing a proposal match the comprehensive plan and neighborhood vision so well. I commend the developers for doing this design and preserving the sensitive areas and the wetlands." Number 5 is supply and demand. As a local real estate broker, I see this new development as a positive way to increase housing stock at a time that it is needed most. The housing market has reached a crossroads with its supply and demand. The higher the supply, the lower the prices could be in the market. Each development that is voted through by this council is increasing supply and only making housing more affordable across Iowa City and the surrounding areas. I would like to end by restating some of the highlights of this development. This includes minimal impact to the surrounding wetlands and mitigation off-site, a 10-foot wide bike walking trail for public access connecting this new development to Calder Park, a new 5-foot wide sidewalk on the north side of Rochester, over 50% woodland retention, including preservation of 32+ acres in conservation easements, protecting the older, more mature trees in Outlot B, supplies a much-needed independent living facility for the 55+ aging population in the area, creates a much-needed variety of housing options, including small single-family lots, large single-family lots, 12 patio homes, 6 twin homes, and 29 multifamily homes. Has a minimal impact on the view shed of the neighboring properties due to the conservation design, and adds land at no cost to the city's right-of-way at the intersection of Rochester and Scott for future city improvements, including possible roundabouts. And lastly, includes traffic calming features for the safe street networking. In conclusion, our preliminary drawings and rezoning requests are in line with the requirements imposed upon our development team, and I'm asking you tonight to vote yes in favor of this great project. I think Heather Ropp, if you guys want to hear anything additionally with the Ewing properties, can briefly speak about that if you'd like to hear from her. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Heather Ropp. I am here on behalf of the developer Ewing Properties, specifically addressing the proposed senior living component, what we are calling the borough of Iowa City. We currently have 2 communities in Johnson County complete, one in Coralville, 59-unit building, sold out with a 30+ person wait list. We have a community off Foster Road in Iowa City, a 53-unit building sold out with a 40+ person wait list, and soon to be a sold out community in North Liberty. So what we have seen is a really high demand for what we're producing. We are building not only beautiful homes and communities for people to live, but we are really building this to build community amongst our buildings. This is an ownership model. for people 55 and above. It is maintenance-free completely inside and outside of their home. And it's really designed for people to age, interact with one another, really promotes healthy aging. We want people to use the common areas. We want them to build friendships. We really want them to enjoy the best years that they have ahead of them, being able to enjoy leisure retirement living. And so we're able to offer that. We are proposing a 2-story building. We are proposing 12 individual patio homes and 3 sets of duplexes, 6 homes for a total of 47 homes on this property. What's unique about what we put together as when people buy with us, they're buying a share. They're a shareholder and they own an entire piece of the entire community. So here in Iowa City, they would own a share of the 8 to 9 acres this sits on, and a share of the clubhouse and the common spaces that they will all use together as a community. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from the public like to address this topic? And we will give up to 3 minutes. Welcome. Please give your name and the city you're in.
My name is David Sickles, Iowa City. I won't take 3 minutes. Just want to speak in favor of this zoning. I am a resident of Ewing Properties. They are a very good corporation and they do their job. They do it very well. Would like to see this property and this zoning go through. It looks like a very good property development for Iowa City. Thank you.
Thank you. Will you please sign in right there?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
And anyone else like to address this topic from the public?
Good evening.
Welcome.
My name is Ruth Bradley. I'm here with my husband, Bruce Tarwater. We would like to speak in favor of this project. We are of a certain age where we are beginning to look at moving out of our single-family home and have been looking for something like this in the area. Not particularly interested in a condo building, but we didn't want to live in North Liberty. There's a reason I moved to Iowa City 12 years ago, and I don't want to leave it. So to have this community of the boroughs being built here in Iowa City is so exciting to us. It offers the opportunity for socialization with the community center. As we saw in the pandemic, our older citizens became more and more isolated. An opportunity like this where we'd have a close neighborhood, an opportunity for socialization, we just think is wonderful. Being able to age in place, we just think this would be a tremendous asset to Iowa City, and we are fully in favor of it. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address this topic from the public? Seeing no one, I just want to, before I close the public hearing, if council is inclined to support in favor of this?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I get a motion to give first consideration?
So moved, Taylor.
Second, Alter.
Council discussion.
I'm very excited about this project. As the public members have said, it just seems like it'll be a really wonderful asset to the city of Iowa City. And as Mr. Clark mentioned, I think this is, we hear about the good neighbor meetings all the time, and I think that this one is really a prime example of the importance and value of good neighbor meetings. It's so obvious, and I would commend the developers for listening to the community members that came and expressed their concerns about the sensitive areas and about the area off of Rochester, those 6 homes. It was obvious that you listened to them and readjusted your plan to include that. And it's, Mr. Thomas and I have talked about the missing middle for many, many years, and this isn't quite that, but I think this is a good example, really good example of mixed housing types. And I'm almost as close to missing middle as you can get, and with the open spaces that we have in our community. So I'm just really excited about it.
I'll offer a few comments. And I certainly appreciate the effort, the outreach to the community, the neighboring residents. That was, I think, a really successful process, and it did change the project in a modest way, but I think in an important way. The connectivity to surrounding neighborhoods with the trail, I think, is a really valuable element, particularly with Rochester being, the alternative. It's kind of nice to have an off-street opportunity to kind of connect through that part of Iowa City without, I'm thinking particularly by bicycle, having to navigate Rochester. And it's also close to Old Town Village. I think it's a major development next to a neighborhood commercial area. So I think the way in which the site has been developed with the higher densities near the corner, easy walking distance to Old Town Village are all valuable. In terms of the senior living, I mean, that's where, and I think I certainly applaud the idea of community with the different arrangement of housing types and the common area. I think that common area is a really important, if we're talking about community and sociability among the neighbors, you need that common space in order for that sociability to be activated. I would make one comment on that. When I was looking at the site plan, I noticed that there are some single-family residences which back onto that open space on the south side of the open space. And I was trying to look for a reference for, is there anything in our code which speaks to that condition? And I recalled that the South District Code does have, in addition to all the housing types, which I think has really been our focus, I think, certainly I'd say most of the community conversation is about the different types of buildings. But that code included standards for civic spaces, and it described kind of in a way similar to how we have different housing types, different open space types, one of which was the green, which I think was the closest of the types to the condition we're dealing with. And under that category, you had a description of what the green is, its general character, and the standards. And under standards, you have the size of the feature, how the boundaries or edges are addressed, and then you also have a third standard related to adjacent building orientation. And it talks about the facades attached to or across a street shall front on the green. So it's that notion that, when you have a common open space within a community or a neighborhood, the best relationship of the buildings surrounding that space are to front the common space. A good example of that would be in the Peninsula neighborhood, where you have Emma Harvett. There, all the residences surrounding that space have the front of the buildings facing the common space. So, that would be, the point I'm trying to make is I think, we've spent considerable time talking about the importance of different housing types. I think it's also important to be thinking about the different types of open spaces. As I said, I really strongly support the idea of creating that common area. I think that's critical to building community. Community doesn't happen in thin air. You really do have to create the setting for that to happen. And with these open space types, there are different conditions and standards, which I think it's important for us to think about as we develop them.
I really like the idea of the senior living component. I appreciate all the work that's gone into this. I'm not going to second guess or micromanage it. My only wish going forward, not necessarily for this project, but for any others that mirror it, is that some of what you're getting, what you're bringing us with this senior living component be included in single family, so that there are more duplexes or townhouses and sort of more of a mix in that part, so that you can get different price points and so forth. That's and I recognize that's not happening here, but I would love to see that going forward. That's sort of like what we're trying to do with the form-based code in the South District and other areas.
Yeah, I certainly can support this project. I'm pleased that there are so many people in agreement with it. I'm sure there's been this process of some negotiation and talks with staff, I'm sure, as well as community members. But it's kind of nice to have a project that there is support throughout the community for. Certainly, we have some diverse opportunities that's going to be coming to into this project. The one thing that I will say, so I'm all for the project. I love senior living. I've been out to the one in Coralville, and so great space, great services from those that I've talked to. This will be I love the diversity and the opportunities that people of the older population will have, through this project. What I will say, anytime I have the, opportunity to talk to developers when they talk about, supply demand and making this affordable. So neighborhoods certainly can dictate what the price points are. So I can build a house in one neighborhood and build the same exact house in another neighborhood. And we're not even talking about the price of the land, but just because of the housing around it, it can create, it really drives the market of what people sell it for. So what I will say is this: the market can dictate whatever, but there's also an opportunity for developers to, take some of these very nice neighborhoods and, yes, the land is going to up the price from another neighborhood, but we all have to work together. There's an opportunity for all of us to work together to really create more supply and bring down those price points. This is certainly not going to everyone in our community won't be able to afford this. This is not an affordable project. That's something that I know that this council has been talking about, certainly in our the form-based code with the South District. That's something that we've given great consideration for. But in this instance, I do believe that this is great for our community. Going to look forward to seeing all the development, and I will be supporting it tonight. If no other comments, roll call, please.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Could I get a motion to accept correspondence?
So moved, Weiner.
Second, Taylor.
Roll call, please.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 10B is zoning code amendment, various historic preservation code changes. Ordinance amending Title 14, zoning of the Iowa City Code to clarify code language related to historic preservation. Staff is requesting an expedited action. Could I get a motion to waive? Sorry.
So I move that the rule requiring that ordinances must be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed be suspended, that the second consideration and vote be waived, and that the ordinance be voted on for final passage at this time.
Second, Taylor.
Moved by Weiner, seconded by Taylor. Anyone from the public like to address this topic? Seeing no one, council discussion. Roll call, please.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Could I get a motion to pass and adopt?
So moved, Burgess.
Second, Taylor.
Roll call, please.
Harmson?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 11, South District sale of 2023 Taylor Drive. Resolution authorizing conveyance of a single-family home located at 2023 Taylor Drive. I'm going to open the public hearing, and we're going to start with Stan. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Awesome and amazing.
And I can't read, so. Nope. All right, I'm gonna need some help with my slide there. I have some before and after photos. I guess we can get those pulled up here in a second. Stan Loverman, Senior Housing Inspector, here to talk about one of the duplexes down in the South District. Refresh your memory, this is the fourth house that we've sold under this program in the South District. Won't go over too much and read the entire memo here, but I'll call out a couple different things. Specifically, the work that we were able to do because of the actions or involvement of climate action. We were able to do a lot of sustainability and energy efficiency projects that we normally can't do. This house has solar, it has an air-sourced heat pump, air-sourced water heater, energy-efficient windows. We were able to add extra insulation to the project as well. So moving forward, the operating cost of the property will be affordable as well. Additionally, we had two additional partnerships that provided some labor and some other opportunities. I saw some of you down there for the student-built project that worked on this. So not only did we get some labor from that, but it was a good opportunity for students to gain some experience with some finished carpentry, from some siding. School district assisted with that, and the members of the Greater Iowa City Home Builders Association provided some oversight, and we got some storage sheds out of it, so very good. And then last, the residential construction confidence course for women that was put on by Kirkwood with the Greater Iowa City Home Builders Association also provided an opportunity for local women to gain some experience with flooring and finished carpentry, among other things. So those are the pictures. I made snow go away, so that's always important to me. There's your before and after. A great project for us. Staff enjoys working on these. It gave a local resident of the South District an opportunity to become a homeowner at an affordable rate and a first-time home buyer. And we're looking at, even with the higher interest rates, of a monthly payment, including property tax and insurance, of about $850 a month. So, any questions?
No, thank you so much. All right, anyone from the public like to address this topic? Seeing no one, I'm just going to see if council is inclined to support this.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved, Taylor.
Second, Alter.
All right, council discussion.
This is great.
Yeah, what can we say?
They're great
It's amazing.
projects, so that's
Yes.
great.
Congrats.
And thanks to city staff
Yes.
for taking, I think, that, what started as a conversation a long time ago and kind of making it happen. So really appreciate that. All right, I think we're ready for a vote. Roll call, please.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 12 is 2022 ADA curb ramp. Resolution approving project manual and estimate of cost for the construction of the 2022 ADA curb ramp project, establishing amount of bid, security to accompany each bid, directing city clerk to post notice to bidders, and fixing time and place for receipt of bids. I'm going to open the public hearing, And welcome.
Hi, my name's Ethan Yoder. I'm with the City of Iowa City Engineering Department. So to talk about the ADA curb ramp project, we selected these locations based upon complaints we have received. And then when we take a look at these locations, we also try to look at the surrounding area to see if they also need to have new curb ramps placed. And with this year, we selected Lakeside Drive and Anderson Lane, Lakeside Drive and both Amber Lane intersections, East Washington Street and Amherst Street, Hickory Trail and Evergreen Court, McCleary Lane between Foster Road and Ball Street, which is an alley, Willenbrock Circle and McCleary Lane, Willenbrock Circle and Martin Street, Willenbrock Circle and Foster Road, and the last one is Walker Circle and Martin Street. And for this project, the timeline, bid letting is August 23rd. The plan is to award the project on September 6th, with construction to start September 19th, and completion for the project to be the spring of 2023. The estimated cost is $140,000. Are there any questions?
My only question is, do you have any sense of what the scale is of these sorts of projects that remain to be done in the city? I mean, this is, we're at the anniversary of the ADA, we should be doing this anyway.
We do have a kind of an online database showing the condition of all curb ramps, and then we do an annual curb ramp report that we could recall and look at that. But we do prioritize areas where there are not curb ramps right now. We're down to just a few of those locations. I mean, we really made good progress, but even ones that we built, say in the 90s, that were compliant at that time are now out of compliance. So I don't think we're ever done improving curb ramps, but we're certainly getting closer to the point where we've retrofitted a lot of the older neighborhoods.
That's great. It also helps people with strollers and other things and that.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone from the public like to address this topic? Seeing no one, I'm going to ask the council if they're inclined to support this. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved, Taylor.
Second, Harmson.
Council discussion.
I just want to say it's very appropriate that this came up for us today after the
Yes.
proclamation, and
Yeah.
every day should be an ADA day, so it's just really good that we are trying to keep up with it and make sure that the whole city is inviting and accessible for all. So I appreciate it. It's the type of thing that's, oh yeah, curbs, what? But these are important things and make folks' lives better, and I'm really appreciative that this is something that the city has as part of its regular cadence. So thank you.
I think it's very appropriate that it came up today as well. And of course, Harry Olmsted comes to mind because certainly when I was running to be on council and after being on council, ADA compliance throughout this community was his jam. And so curb ramps, he really opened my eyes to always think about the challenges. Even though I'm in the field of disabilities, just opportunities speaking with him, but also to the staff that is really in tune to ensuring that we are ADA compliant throughout our community. So thanks for what you all do.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning Harry. I was thinking of that earlier this meeting, too.
All right. We're ready for roll call, please.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 13, Fairchild Street reconstruction. Resolution approving project manual and estimate of cost for the construction of the Fairchild Street reconstruction project. Establishing amount of bid, security to accompany each bid, directing city clerk to post notice to bidders, and fixing time and place for receipt of bids. I'm going to open the public hearing. And welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Aline Dumaki, and I'm a senior engineer in the Public Works Department. And today I'll be offering you two brief presentations, and I will start with Fairchild Street reconstruction. This project is located along Fairchild Street between Clinton Street and Lynn Street. The project of this The project scope includes the reconstruction of existing brick street along Fairchild Street with new concrete curb and gutter. And this work includes removal, salvaging, and resetting of existing brick on a new 7-inch Portland cement pavement with a drainable base. This project also includes replacement of sidewalk on both sides of Fairchild Street, and also replacement of curb ramps at intersections to provide ADA accessibility for pedestrians. This project will provide increased safety for vehicles and pedestrians while maintaining street aesthetics in this historic district. Additional improvements include storm sewer replacement with upgraded pipes and intakes at Dubuque Street and Lynn Street intersections, subdrain tile installation to provide adequate sub-base drainage, and the new upgraded 8-inch water main to replace the existing 6-inch water main built in late 19th century. These are some of the pictures of existing conditions. As you can see, the pavement is uneven, and present there are the existing limestone curbs built around 1892. Also, the existing pavement has poor drainage, and there is one driveway that is protruding over the driving area currently. This construction project has been split in 4 phases to minimize impact to residents and allow access to their properties. All property owners affected by construction will be allowed to park within 400 feet of construction, and pedestrian access to properties will be maintained at all times. Phase 1 and 3 relate to construction sequence of the water main, which include installation of the water main pipes and valves, testing of water main, and temporary shutdown for connection to the existing water main. Phase 2 and 4 relate to construction sequence of the street, sidewalk, and storm sewer, and includes removal, grading, brick paving, sidewalk, driveways, and storm sewer. During Phase 2, the 200 block of Fairchild is split to allow parking lot access to residences at 216 and 222 Fairchild through one of the 2 driveways. During Phase 4, in the 100 block of Fairchild, is split to allow parking lot access to 427 North Dubuque, 128 Fairchild, and 430 North Clinton Street. This is the construction schedule for the 200 block. The early start would be September 2022, and the late start of May 29, 2023. All work in phases 1 and 2 started this year shall be completed prior to November 1st of this year. No work shall begin in the 100 block of Fairchild, Clinton to Dubuque. And for the phases 3 and 4, which represent the 100 block of Fairchild, the early start or late start would be May 29th of 2023. And all work on all phases shall be completed prior to July 28th of 2023. The estimated cost of construction is approximately $1,610,000. And with this, I will end this presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Hi. Thank you very much for the presentation. It gave me a really good overview. One of the questions I have, and maybe it's a naive question, is whether there are any risks with your timeline of completion, the early work, the first phases, by November of 22, because I know that we've had, in other contexts, issues with supply and getting the materials. So is that something that is a risk factor, or you feel pretty confident about?
Overall, we are somewhat confident. The only thing that could be unforeseen would be some material lead times. However, we are expecting for the phase 1 to go on with no issues. And that's why we offer the contractor the option to complete everything next year if they have issues with supplies for this year.
I just would like to add that along those lines, like Aline was saying, we're allowing them to, if they start this year, they need to get finished so that we don't have a street under construction during the winter months. So that makes it complicated for pedestrians, not only pedestrians, but vehicles, and then for snow removal. So if they get started, we want to see them get finished, but they can also push it back completely till next year. So providing a little bit of flexibility there for them.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. All right, anyone from the public like to address this topic? Before I close, just want to see if counselors are inclined to support this. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved, Thomas.
Second, Burgess.
Moved by Thomas, seconded by Alter. She was the loudest. Council discussion.
I do appreciate all the, thought that goes into the phasing of the project to try to minimize day-to-day disruptions. A project like this can be very disruptive, so appreciate all the ways in which that disruption is attempted to be minimized.
I appreciate the department saving the brick streets. I think that's an important part of the Iowa City history, and when we can do that, I know it's a lot of effort and work on the part of the city, but I appreciate that.
Roll call, please.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Item 14 is Scott Boulevard Sidewalk Infill. Resolution approving project manual and estimate of cost for the construction of the Scott Boulevard Sidewalk Infill project. Establishing amount of bid security to accompany each bid. Directing city clerk to post notice to bidders. And fixing time and place for receipt of bids. I'm going to open the public hearing. And welcome again.
Hello again, Mayor and Council. My name is Aline Dumaki from Public Works Department. This is the second and my last presentation for tonight, and I will be discussing Scott Boulevard Sidewalk Infill and Storm Sewer Improvement Project. This project is located along Scott Boulevard, just north of American Legion Road between Silver Lane and Court Hill Trail, and it represents an important pedestrian and bicyclist route on the east side of town. Current existing conditions, such as deteriorated HMA shoulder with poor drainage, narrow and discontinued sidewalk, warrant the need for this improvement project. With recent improvements at American Legion Road roundabout, this project will extend existing multi-use sidewalk towards Scott Park entrance. Additional improvements, the parking lot asphalt surface at Rita's Ranch Dog Park is also in need of significant restoration, and this parking lot will also be reconstructed. Proposed improvements include new 8 feet wide PCC sidewalk along the east side of Scott Boulevard between Silver Lane and Court Hill Trail with new reconstructed hot mix asphalt shoulder. Other proposed improvements include this is the second part of the sidewalk along Scott Boulevard. Other proposed improvements are new HMA surface parking lot with 14 regular stalls and 1 van accessible parking space at Rita's Ranch parking lot. An additional portion of sidewalk would connect Rita's Ranch Dog Park to the existing sidewalk path at Eastbrook Street development. Additional improvements include replacing existing storm sewer system with upgraded storm sewer pipes and intakes to match recent improvements at the intersection of Scott Boulevard and American Legion Road. Some estimated quantities, there will be an installation of approximately 1,400 linear feet of sidewalk, approximately 1082 square yards of new HMA surface for shoulder in the parking lot, and the installation of approximately 905 linear feet of storm sewer and associated structures. The estimated construction cost of the project would be $355,000, and the construction schedule has a specified early start date of September 20th, 2022, a late start date of April 3rd, 2023, with a completion date of June 30th of next year. And with this, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
No questions. Thank you. Anyone from the public like to address this topic? Seeing no one, is council inclined to vote in support of this before I close the public hearing?
Great additions.
I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Weiner.
Second, Thomas.
Council discussion. Roll call, please.
Weiner,
Yes.
Alter,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Harmson,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 15 is CPRB ordinance. Ordinance amending Title 8 entitled Police Regulations, Chapter 8 entitled Community Police Review Board to clarify certain procedural provisions and to codify certain existing procedural practices. This is first consideration. Could I get a motion, please?
So moved, Thomas.
Second, Taylor.
Council discussion. Well, we should probably ask if anyone from the public like to go first. Open up public discussion. Seeing no one. Council discussion.
I think the amendments are pretty straightforward, and we had the memos in the packet and in our info packet. So I think we should approve them.
That
Yeah.
sounds clear.
Roll call, please.
Alter,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Harmson,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weiner.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 16 is council appointments. Applicants must reside in Iowa City and be 18 years of age unless specific qualifications are stated. 16A is Board of Adjustment. Board of Adjustment, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term effective upon appointment through December 31st, 2023. And, all right.
Right, so there's a gender balance requirement.
Yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer with the
there's-
gender
And there's
requirement.
there's one female applicant who seems perfectly well qualified.
Yes.
Yeah, I worked with Paul on planning and zoning. She's very, very savvy and experienced on this type of material. The other issue here too is the board is, I think they had to cancel a recent meeting because of a lack of a quorum. One of their members is in Europe and sometimes is not available for Zoom. And so I think filling this if we can, if we feel we have a qualified candidate.
I also appreciate Larry Baker stepping up with the notion of being able to fill a gap until someone, and we're fortunate that we got another good candidate as well.
So it sounds like I hear majority support for Paula Swigert.
I would agree.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So could I get a motion to approve Paula Swigert to the Board of Adjustment?
So moved, Taylor.
Second, Weiner.
Roll call, please.
Burgess.
Yes.
Harmson.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Teague.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Weiner.
Yes.
Alter.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 17 is announcement of vacancies new. Applicants must reside in Iowa City and be 18 years of age unless specific qualifications are stated. Housing and Community Development Commission, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term effective upon appointment, June 30th, 2025. All right. Applications must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. There was a correspondence. Can I get a motion to accept, please?
So moved. Alter.
Second, Burgess.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item number 18 is announcement of vacancies previous. Applicants must reside in Iowa City and be 18 years of age unless specific qualifications are stated. Human Rights Commission, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term. Applications must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, August 30th, 2022. Airport Zoning Board of Adjustment, one vacancy to fill a 5-year term. Airport Zoning Commission, one vacancy to fill a 6-year term. Historic Preservation Commission, one vacancy to fill a 3-year term. Historic Preservation Commission, one vacancy to fill a 3-year term. Public Art Advisory Committee, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term. Public Art Advisory Committee, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term. Senior Center Commission, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term. Vacancies will remain open until filled. We're at item number 19, City Council information.
I mentioned during our break that I need to figure out what to do for Saturday dinners now that the diversity market is done. But just want to give a shout out to, I think there were 9, had planned on 10 and canceled 1 due to the heat one day. But just a phenomenal program and project and great things happening in that area. And just grateful to see that continue.
Great.
If I may, just to follow up on that, there's been a neighborhood discussion, and it looks like the Summer of the Arts has rescheduled one of their movies, and they want to show it at Pepperwood Plaza. And so they've reached out to Tasha Laird, and it looks like that will be happening as well. I will provide more details on the specific date when I find out, but this is hot off the presses.
I would just add, going back to one of our long-standing agenda items, there is a lot of COVID going around, so please take care. Please get vaccinated, that we can mitigate it.
All right, any other items there? Hearing none. Item number 20 is report on items from city staff. We're going to start with our city manager's office.
Just quick mention that a lot of the police, fire, park staff are out at National Night Out. We have 4 National Night Out sites this year, which is great, pretty much every corner of town. So it's a little warm out there, but hopefully they're seeing good crowds.
Could you remind us where those locations are?
We have one at Christ the King Church on the west side, that's Mormon Trek Boulevard, one at Weatherby Park, one at Sugarloaf Circle, which is the Peninsula neighborhood, and one on Kilburney Court, which is east side Windsor Ridge area.
Thank you. And we're going to move on to our city attorney's office.
And nothing from me tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. And our city clerk's office. All right. Item number 21. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, Taylor.
Moved by Burgess, seconded by Taylor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Have a good night.
Aye.